At least I what 2 waiting. Well, so let's begin. This is a new series I'm going to start for. Well, not really series, but I said I was going to review X-Men '97 and fall. Oh God, forgot to mute my screen. So this is a series I'm going to start because I actually like reviewing shows, and I've been waiting for X-Men '97 to actually start, and it feels like actually a Coon's Age, or I mean, when they announced it, it was that. And also, I'm going to be reviewing Fallout. Hopefully, Gray and others will join because I got like Patrick who's going to be doing this as well, and he has thoughts, and because I don't like hate reviewing content. It's then again, you get shows that violate your childhood, so I'm sure Gray would understand that, and many others.
Oh
But
yeah, and I expected this one would, and I was kind of surprised. But yeah, sorry for interrupting your intro.
no, you're good. You're good. No official intro. I fly by the seat of my pants. So, but you've learned this by now. No, it's I'm pleasantly surprised by it because there was a lot of promos leading up to this. Hmm. So we didn't know what to expect. Plus, with the showrunner getting canned, like
I was gonna say there were some other warning signs too, and that showrunner wasn't it like 2 weeks out or like a week out from
a
launch, where they
week out, yeah.
yeah, where they just got rid of the showrunner. That doesn't, you
Not
know.
just a show. He's not. He wasn't just a showrunner. Head creator, head writer, and head director.
hmm And I don't know the exact reason. Like the rumors are kind of that he had his own kind of
OF with
side.
that wasn't
Yeah,
explicit.
where I mean, fair enough. It's Disney who owns them. Like I'm sure they've got morality clauses in almost every one of their
Yes.
contracts. But yeah, still it seems kind of weird. But it doesn't. It's nothing related to this. Apparently, it's his personal life as he didn't live up to his contract or
So
something. So,
he had moved from the mic.
which I don't know. A lot of people definitely took the ball and kind of ran with that, saying like, "See, this is going to be like the wokest show ever, and it's going to ruin our childhoods." And I don't know. I was kind of expecting that, and I got to be honest, I was really pleasantly surprised. It
Uh,
kind of hit me in the feels in a way I didn't think it would.
hmm.
But yeah, I was totally primed to hate this thing again. I don't know. A lot of this has been happening this year. Like you said that you don't want to like hate watch a lot of things. Neither do I, but it seems like I keep getting hate primed or primed to hate something quite recently. Like this is going to be the worst adaptation of it ever, and I guess I just start setting my expectations low. But yeah, this one exceeded everything that I had, every single expectation. I thought there's no way I could hold a candle to that fun show from our childhood. But I gotta be honest, I think it does in a weird way. I'm fully ready for it to start upsetting me or start disappointing me. But so far so good. Like these 2 episodes, I thought were really solid. I kind of really liked it
It's a lot of member berries, to be honest.
for sure, for sure.
They're going a lot of member berries because, like the beginning, I am very going to be curious if they pay off, like because they brought in the original showrunner to write the team because the premise of X-Men '97 was originally pitched, and the only way the original creator would come back was if they gave them good control. So
Sometimes it
it
works, man. I'm glad that they were able to do that in this particular case.
but then again, a report though that both of them eventually didn't get, or they did try to put people into the project. So I think we start off with the first because this is the first time in almost what going on 23 years the show has been out.
Yeah, isn't it even longer than that? Because like they went out in '96, right?
Like 96, 97. Yeah.
So isn't it like closer to like 30 years of
And
this?
because the show was put out in the peak popularity of X-Men of the 90s when they were revamping a lot of lines. And welcome to the other people who just joined. Like, odd time. But uh, I haven't been busy. Sparkles, I'll get to that.
And I accepted the request, Miss Sparkles. We're friends. I'm just a bad friend.
Well, good luck trying to get a hold of Gray. This is
Yeah, I'm
universal.
kind of horrible. Like it's nothing personal. I suck at the whole friend thing and communicating.
You suck at communication. Why do you think I plan? I nag you like weeks and weeks and weeks in advance.
Hey, it works, man.
No, but no, its show has been a thing of because most people really only remember kind of like because this was part of the revamp of to set the stage right. X-Men 97 or the 90s animated series was part of the Marvel block. You had Iron Man, you had Spider-Man, the was Amazing Spider-Man. You had what was it? Was there others? Amazing
I mean,
Spider-Man.
through that they had a whole lot of cameos. Like they've also brought in a
No,
whole lot.
Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four.
Mhm.
You had you had it was the animated Marvel block.
Yeah, yeah.
And
But they were able to get more than just their own. It's more characters were able to come in and cameo on each of those shows, and they had crossovers and everything. It was pretty awesome. It was a good time to be interested in comics.
good for kids, may not be the most comically accurate. Uh, as you'll find out in X Men, they do incorporate new storylines. Um, they're using like Magneto's costume, like the first you because the show picks up. I guess it's like a year after Henry Gyrick had killed Professor X and at the UN.
I think it's supposed to be a few months. I mean, obviously, if Jean's that pregnant, then it has to be quite a few months, or quotation marks around Jean is that pregnant. But yeah, I think it's within a year of the last one, and I went back and kind of watched some of season 5. I forgot how bad half of that season the animation is. They just completely used different animators, but it was a weird arc. So do
Well,
you
that's
think
because you're right. Because you remember towards the end, they had it where he Charles Xavier was sick,
yeah,
and he went off with a Shi'ar.
yeah. So do you think the death thing is just a cover story at this point? Because it kind of opens up saying Charles Xavier's dead. So is that just a cover story for the
So the
world?
original one ran from nine. I guess it started in '92 all the way to September of '97. That's how long the original series ran. Um,
Fair enough.
so it directly was tied to the reboot of X-Men in the '90s as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Which it was fun to see them on the big screen, but that's not X-Men. Like it was a very stylized version of Rand.
oh, so they change it. Okay, so here's what they do on graduation day. They change graduation day. See, a lot of this happens with Wiki because sometimes I remember it, but you want to see it. Uh, as the Mutant Human Relations Summit, Henry Peter Gyrick attacks and cripples Professor Xavier with an energy disruptor. The X-Men and Moira McTaggart try to save, but all seems lost. Leandra comes and has a cure, but must leave and go back to the Shi'ar Empire to be cured, while it makes primal preparations to take over the world with his mutant army. But on the eve of the invasion, I guess everyone infiltrate and tell Magneto that Xavier's dying, and he halts out of respect for his greatest enemy. The final scene depicts where Magneto and them are outside the mansion before he leaves. Now, I guess they're saying it's the death certificate you see.
Yeah, so they do show I believe it's 11/11/96 is the expiration date of Professor Xavier, according to that death certificate. So what I was wondering is, so like the last we see in season 5 of the animated series from 96 to 97, it's basically saying that he's not dead, he's just really sick, so now he's going off into space to live the only way that he can. But I don't know. Is it just a cover story that he's dead, or did they just completely retcon that?
We
Because
don't
I'm
know. They could
okay.
send it one of two ways.
Well, I'm hoping that it is just the cover story that we're kind of getting, but it is supposed to be the continuation from that 96 to 97 season, and then this kind of just picks up right afterwards, which I really dug a lot of the ways that they did it. So like it starts with that opening. It's very classic. Like it's got so first off, you got a Marvel logo, and then from there it goes into almost a redo of the original, but it's got slight variations that are really cool in the way that they do the animation.
Well, you change out more. I mean, they really
Mhm.
changed. Like the idea. Okay, there's a few theories I've had about the show. Morph is based on Changeling. Okay, that's who his name is. His name is Changeling. Um, he. It's very weird. Uh, he's not like. So, okay, so they're definitely using the line of, I guess they're trying to say he was like, they're going with definitely he's a gene shifter.
Yeah, which I thought Morph was kind of a horrible character when it was just like that first season where they just kind of kill him in one shot. And I guess they weren't supposed to. Originally, it was
Well, you remember the original pilot. The original pilot was of the show. They toned him down. They toned down
yeah,
the show because the premise was it was supposed to be a really dark world, you know. Mutants come in, the Sentinels, because the that's actually why one of the original like X-Men 90s, the original X-Men show was pretty dark.
it was. And that first episode was dark as hell. Like you're introduced to these mutants and then they're killing off like a team member. I love the way that they kind of changed that later, and then the PTSD that Morph has to deal with. But yeah, man, it was
Because
dark.
he gets rescued by
Sinister.
Sinister, yeah. Which I think is
Yeah.
going to have a giant payoff.
Well, they kind of do. And in that opening, it gets a glint of Morph's eye, and you can kind of see Mr. Sinister's smile in it. There's some really cool breakdowns of just the opening, but now it's in widescreen instead of like the square that it all used to be broadcast in, which is nice. But like even the animation, they were able to step it up a ton with their budget. Like there's this really cool breakdown of the animation trailer out there, the trailer for the X-Men, but it's really cool. Like with
They are
animation,
using digital assets, though. They
Mhm.
are using it
But
digitally.
they're able to use styles that they couldn't afford to do, especially in that 5th season, where so they're still animating on the twos. So like you don't do every single frame, you do every second frame. But in the shot where it's sorry, Storm and Rogue right outside of the ship, it's really kind of amazing. They're having both Rogue and Storm animated on the twos, but opposite ones. So they're moving every other frame. Each one is moving. And then they've got the ship in the background animated on threes. they just were not able to do that, and it really gives you separation and depth of movement. The ship really does seem further back since it's moving at a slightly slower pace, but man, it's just like little things like that they couldn't do with the animation back in the 90s, especially the later half of that fifth season, where
Mhm.
some of that's coming off really crisp. And then they're adding in like these weird artifacts and elements to kind of call back to the horrible animation from the 90s, which is classic at this point. But I really like the way they tackled it. I kind of had some teasers from like the trailer. I kind of thought it was gonna be horrible, but I got to be honest, like from that opening, it just kind of had me. I really liked it. I was like almost fully on board. I expected them to then screw up the story, but man, just from the opening, what they add to it, like those few extra frames of movement on each character to kind of give them a little bit more. Like Rogue's is pretty much the same, where she's flipping the Sentinel, but you can actually see like all these expressions and her like actually bearing down, and like it shows great effort to throw him. It's not just like, okay, I'm throwing this dude. I'm digging all the changes they did. They seem to have some sort of reverence for the source material, which is rare in a lot of these
Well, they
reboots.
also brought back the original actors and
Yeah,
actresses.
well, most of them. As Miss Scarlet
Mo,
pointed out, like Jubilee is awesome. That actress did not want to come back because she thought in this day and age you can't portray somebody of a different race without being part of that race. So then they brought in an authentic person to voice Jubilee, but I still dig her voice. I don't. That didn't throw me a ton. Where some of the other voices did. You can kind of feel the age or the time in between when the last one left off and when this came up.
well,
Specifically, Storm and Wolverine
the
for me.
thing about the thing about uh, when you talk about that period, Jubilee always, I don't know, used to be the argument who's the more useless character ever.
Oh, dude, Jubilee is
Jubilee,
awesome though. Like
Jubilee or Dazzler.
well, she's no rock star, but I don't know. I dig Jubilee. I
Because
would
in
choose
the
Jubilee.
show, right, they say she's a teenager who can make sparks, those things, sparklers, basically. Uh, the thing to it is as
Nothing
well.
wrong with Sparkle.
So they have her as a sheer. It doesn't solve. See, part of the thing in the show, you get to the main thing. It's definitely trying to revive the Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing. Very much. Because the
Yeah,
episodes are 30 minutes.
yeah.
Now, I
I guess it's gonna
would
be 10 this season. So we're
I would
we're 20% of the way.
wonder I would really wonder because already two seasons are in the can. Supposedly when the guy got canned. Basically Marvel fired him with nuclear fire and abolished his existence. Uh, you listen.
But yeah, I've just been amazed with a lot of these different portrayals. But yeah, so I guess we are 20% of the way through this season. From what I understand, it's going to be 10 episodes, and they're releasing one episode per week for the next 8 weeks. So I don't know. I'm actually kind of excited for this. It really did kind of bring back that whole Saturday morning cartoon feel, as you were saying.
So, and the big thing too is it makes me wonder because they changed um, his powers, like Morph's powers, be amplified enough to like because they have altered. There was a little bit of modern Marvel in there in the terms because that's why I say if you look at like
You talking Morph's powers specifically?
yes, because the concept right is can Morph could duplicate people, but could he duplicate powers? And
So they brought him back as pretty
technically,
overpowered
that
in
and
the
I
season 5.
that might be an alteration that they explain.
Mm. Uh,
Like
have you gone back and like revisited the 90s one for a minute? Because I totally forgot how badass they made Morph in that last season. But he basically takes out like Master Mold himself, like by himself. And he again turns into like Archangel and like saves people as they're like falling. Um, Man, he just his ability. So initially, it didn't seem like he had the ability to take on other mutants' powers, but now he basically did in season 5 of it. So
Well, that's a more of a
not wrong
modern.
that they kind of
That's
overpowered him.
a
Like, that was when
there's
they
a
brought back
weird,
his
but you got to understand the idea of they had to clarify gene shifting is
mm-hmm, for sure. And you don't think
versus
we knew because he was a throwaway character. You know, he's just so originally I think it was Warpath is his name. He's kind of one of the lesser known ones, but he was just supposed to be taken out in the thing. And they're like, okay, so we're gonna take out the only like native representation we have. Let's change it. So they just brought
well,
in.
they called him Morph because he was originally there, but he was there for a short period. Like, but to be honest, Warpath is more or less in other teams. So for the show, they kept it basic. So you get the idea of the original lineup. It's just slightly different. And I do think, because I was kind of wondering why there's a bishop. And
He kept kind of coming back and forth, but like the conceit in the 90s one was anytime he removes his like time travel band, he automatically went back to his time, which doesn't seem to be happening now. So I'm not 100% certain, but he does appear to be an official member who's stuck in
why don't you
studio.
have his sister? Like his sister Shard should be around as well. His sister.
Yeah. I
But,
mean, you might have cable now though, so interesting.
well, before I build up to that, Jane's pregnant. It opens up, and they have to go search for Trask. Trask has been missing. So the first episode is a recap of like the beginning of, like, I guess, the Night of the Sentinels, except they want to conclude it and conclude the Sentinel threat. You see the other thing that Jean's pregnant. And actually, what's funny is say how far along she is. Like,
Yeah.
and
It's obviously third trimester, but they don't exactly say where it is.
mm, find out next episode. But you see them take the second master mold. Well, it's really the third master mold, to be honest. But you didn't know that, did you?
I did, but
It's
yeah,
like
it
the
is.
third master mold.
Yeah, well, Morph took out the second one by himself, so I
But
don't know. It kind of makes sense in a way, but
I
yeah, it's
mean, they don't really explain Genosha, and you have to go back to like the original. Now there are signs because I had a theory, and I won't before we get to the part about Gene. If you know some of the comics, you know where they're going because you often ask in the show why was there no Cyclops at the manor? Like, where are the other X Men? Where's Nightcrawler? Where's the other one?
well, he was there earlier, and he did meet Mystique, but in this one, he's kind of like a monk, so I don't know. I hoping they're gonna bring some of them back, but you know, they are bringing some cameos in via Morph, like he was able to be. Now I'm forgetting her name, but Logan's like former lover associate, Lady Deathstrike, I think. And then he was Psylocke for a second as well, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of awesome to see him, you know,
I
kind of
wouldn't
bring
say
in those
really.
characters that way.
Lady Deathstrike, right? Because I guess if he gets the so if you're going with the modern idea of gene shifting powers, I mean that's kind of I'm pretty sure that's been kicked around Marvel for a while. Like the concept of because the thing is, but it also brings back. I was not the hugest. uh and we can also I have to throw this in. Dane does enjoy showing the Wolverine animation in his show now. We can successfully assume he's interested in him more ways than one. But
I gotta be honest, like the Wolverine animation in this was pretty awesome. I love the way his claws looked compared to like the
oh, it's
old
a
cartoon.
lot better. Like
Yeah.
the second, I will say the second opening is a lot better than the first. But we'll get
I
when we get there. The second episode has a better
Mhm.
opening. So I don't know why the first opening is different than the second.
Well,
So
so they're not trying to give away like who's going to be the leader of the team or anything like that. So they kind of change it in the second one. So they show the new leader first, where before they were showing, Scott and then Jean Grey moved up in the uh, whatever you want to call it, like roster. She was like second in command.
oh, so yeah, that's what I was gonna get before I get into that. Yeah, that's they're going along with the whole thing. Like when we review Shogun, Shogun does that progression in the openings.
So I'm
So
hoping they're going to keep changing it up. But if they just keep it with that second one, it's still an awesome opening.
so you get to that, and they have to hunt down Master Mold, or where they're trying to hunt down Trask, and then they find the other Master Mold. You have Gene who goes into Gyric's mind, and he's like, "What are you gonna do to me? The worst is." Now, I will say what has not aged well is the Friends of Humanity.
Well, I agree with you. There's elements of it that don't, but I mean, they were over the top to begin with. Like they had like clan hoods, I think, in the third season or something like that. So
Awful.
I agree with you. It hasn't aged well, but it's not really
It,
that much
and they
different.
were invented for the show.
Yeah. Which I kind of dug. There were a few things that they kind of invented for the show. But one thing that I think we should probably mention about that where Jean is trying to go inside of Trask's mind, she there's some really cool symbolism in there where it seems like the world is turning dark. There's kind of a Sarah Connors moment where this nuke from the master mold kind of takes her out in the middle of the desert. And then she's holding a baby as well. But there's definite um, implications that it could be the Dark Phoenix is taking over, but it could be something else. And then, we kind of
Oh, I will. I could say
perhaps see that
exactly
coming up,
what
but that vision that she has is there's a lot going on in there.
that
It's
might
not
be a
all
payoff,
straightforward.
but there I have a theory about why that was. But and a lot of it's based on speculation if they choose to prove it. So, and then again, they stop and they arrest Trask, and the end of it is where I guess I think it's weird that they didn't even bother after the whole discussion of stuff like why the when the ball goes through the window, they didn't even bother to put the picture back up on the wall.
Well, they don't have time to do that. Instead, he's got to
They
go
gotta
yell
go. They gotta go off and do whatever. I mean, there's little things that's minor. Like
for sure.
you find out like that like I guess there's a last will and testament. See, what gets me though is why I think they might change it is because Scott thinks he actually dies. That's why I don't think they may retcon the shield going off with the shield.
That's right. Yeah, it's a little unclear as to whether it's kind of like a conceit for everybody else that we can't explain his disappearance and why he's off planet, so we're just going to say he died, or if they just change that. But yeah, I'm still a little unclear as to that. But I don't know. It does kind of make sense if it's a few months later. It would take a while for the death certificate to arrive, but wouldn't they have a copy of his will too, being like his students and like the next in command? Or
Well, see, what they're doing is they're doing an opening with a main plot in like a teaser or a small main subplot per episode. Does that make sense?
yeah, for sure. Just there's a couple little conceits that are in there, but whatever. It's a superhero show, so I'm sure there's going to be little. You got to kind of go along with certain things. I would have thought they would have known about his last will and testament before 8 months or so had passed. But either way, I'm willing to go with it.
And I'll be very honest, that is the costume from uh
Is it the Trial of Magneto?
uh probably it's like older, right? Like that's let me see, I have to go look that back up, but I remember more of that costume from House of M.
I thought it was even earlier I thought it was the Trial of Magneto, but I could be wrong, which is kind of the storyline that they're going with. It's just very abbreviated.
Let me see. But they used weight because the thing is, when you're looking at old with like the M on the chest thing, that most people only remember him in like the red with like the red in the middle. I think that's even in the Fox movies kind of thing.
That is totally not the one that I was thinking of. Sorry, the Trial of Magneto. That's not the one that I thought it was.
Because he
I
has
definitely see
seven.
his costume on the cover of that one, but yeah, it's in it. That one's from 2014.
Okay, well,
But I thought it was earlier than that as well. So my memory might be wrong.
no, it's the Never Again costume.
That makes sense.
It's the
Oh,
Never.
sorry. This is just when the book was published. Sorry, it's they combined it to a book in 2014 apparently. But my bad.
It's the Never Again that they use.
But yeah, I kind of dig the costume. I gotta be honest, it feels like it's an upgrade from like the super clunky one from the 90s cartoon, which I love. I mean, like that is what it looked like in the comics, but there was a lot of stiffness and rigidity to Magneto's costume before. This one, it's not the greatest costume ever, but it seems to be more flowing. I don't know. I kind of like the upgrade costume, and it's showing that he's a different man, or at least
No,
he's
it's
a
Never Again. It's the Never Again, the big M.
Hmm.
Which I guess it was different when he joined the X-Men, but it doesn't have the white on the chest.
Sparkles has a point. I guess we could be sharing the visuals to show the M costume. Yeah, we probably
I have to
should have set
find
this
it.
up with some slides. We did not. I
Oh,
kind of hate the way that ScreenYard makes you put it into a slideshow. You can't just bring up pictures unless you're bringing up the web page. But intricacies with stupid programs.
I can do it pretty easily because it is from the Trials of Magneto. This
Yeah,
one.
I was gonna say like that's the first time that I saw it, but I don't know. You're way more of a comic expert than me. My expertise goes to like 90s X-Men, but I couldn't afford every single one. So I
Some
know
people
most of those
know
are.
of it.
Yeah.
It's from the double. I can share it. It's a little harder, but it's weird. Like this was December. Let's see. There's a way I've been learning to be able to share because you can look a lot of this up. And plus, you got to be really careful on YouTube, Miss Sparkles, because people copyright. YouTube has been the most.
Hey, we're transforming this. We can fight it.
You
But yeah, it's this lovely costume. So instead of having the like pinks with his purples, he's all purple this time. Purples and blacks, but this giant M across his whole torso. It's kind of a
it
fun,
is from the Trial of Magneto.
which is kind of the storyline that they're adopting. But yeah, it's I don't know. There's some fun arcs that
Here's
they
the
can.
thing: They actually teased the image of Forge. They're definitely towards the end of the episode as well. Did you catch? They're going with the animated the game ending from the X-Men arcade.
That's really weird. No, I don't think I was aware of
You
that.
did not catch that?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I didn't catch that personally.
But this is the original comic where the Trial of Magneto was, and that is the second episode. Because it ends with like, oh, why would Charles entrust the X-Men to his greatest enemy? Which, because this is supposed to be a spiritual successor.
For sure.
Now you have it where it begins with, I guess, shortly after the next day, where they go and pick up Magneto because Magneto starts saving people. Then the UN wants to put him on trial, and he lets himself get the collar. You you see the guy who is the previous head of the Friends of Humanity make a new weapon, which I'll get to. That
Yeah.
there's
And there's a lot of people that are getting collared again, which kind of goes back. We've seen it a few different
Oh,
times.
but before we move on, you do see the whole thing with Storm, kind of a wokeism in Storm. You really do, and that wasn't the original Storm.
So I mean, so when you're just looking at it, it's very much an intro, like in the original first episode of the '90s run of the cartoon. She has kind of an intro at the mall where she comes in and starts talking about, the storms, and she's doing that big booming voice. That's kind of how you get the intro to her again in this, reboot of X-Men '97.
Oh no, I'm talking about the Sentinel thing. She's all you usually see because there's the line. It really sticks out with me more, and I'm really hoping it doesn't come back and bite the series. Oh, these machines of hatred destroy them. Like she's all about like has this massive agenda. Like it's not like the Storm from the '90s.
I don't know, man.
Like she's like motherly, and that's seated. It's very much like she is the strong. Like I guess like a strong. You're too close to the mic again.
I don't know, man. Like I've got no audio playing other than in my earbud. I don't know how it could possibly be hitting this.
Okay, you could be.
Before I had a composite track on, so like it was putting my mic and it was compositing everything into it, but I don't have that now. So I don't know how you're hearing my audio, but fair enough. So I'm not perceiving her as a woke Storm or anything like that. Could you give me any example of
The
like
roots are there. She's going to the act. She's going through the activist route. It really shows, and I was hoping they don't pay. I really hope they don't pay this in dividends because it's going to ruin Storm. Because assuming Scott, by the way, assuming
it shows, but I'm not seeing it. So could you give me like an example of what you saw that you were saying is?
So she has a lot of lines. It's activism language, like when she goes destroy these storms of these use the powers to destroy these machines of hatred.
Mm-hmm. That actually is kind of a callback. I wish I knew the exact line from it, but a lot of the lines that she's saying in the first episode are a callback to the previous series. I didn't think it was woke back then, but yeah, I mean, like they are the machines of hatred, though. Like what is it, Friends of Humanity? I can't remember.
When exactly. She refers to it, the Friends of Humanity, she has some other stuff, and it might just be callbacks. They tried to update it to get member berries, but that's
how I interpret it. But I could be wrong. I mean, like, yeah,
there's definitely some very encoded language, subtly. I mean,
they are kind of the machines of hatred. Like these guys are known as.
You got the Sentinels, and then you have her when she's discussing some of the other people, like about the ears of parts, like with people, because Storm was like the ambassador for the X-Men for a bit too. Like in the old series, she would go around. And the big thing about it is, well, you'll have to see if it continues. But
she was kind of the motherly figure before too.
But she wasn't really motherly versus the other of she uses the word bigotry, hatred in other parts of the episode. Like when she's fighting like the Friends of Humanity and whatever else. And it's definitely updated terms, and it's not wasn't it
definitely using updated terms, but I mean like they are kind of a hate group. They think that they're genetically superior and these other people are genetic
Well,
abominations.
there's
Like in the previous series, they said like, "What's your problem with me?" And it's like that you exist. So I mean, it's like
well, that's why they're the
it doesn't seem
cartoon.
to
They
be
are
it
literally the cartoonish, over the top villains.
for sure, and that's what they were back in '96 as well. So it's like I get what you're saying, but it doesn't feel like they've changed that to make it woke. But
They
perhaps I've drank the Kool-Aid and I'm just too
no,
into
it's.
it.
I'm
Uh,
not saying it. The warning signs are there.
mhm.
You know it's in the writing room, but it looks like they wrote a lot of lines out. People have to watch it, and you have to listen for the activist language that got snuck in there. Like,
Hmm.
there's a big thing too, like with I think it's when you get into more of the second episode, you see the trial of Magneto, or when Magneto's first there, like at the end, like Rogue is like, and what do you think of the Rogue twist at the beginning of the end of the episode?
So yeah, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. I kind of hate it, but in a way it makes
It's
sense.
in the no,
It's
it's
an
in
alternate
it's seated
timeline.
in the no in the first episode. She goes and
Mhm,
talks to Magneto at the
mhm.
end.
Eric, you can
There's
tell
a
that
whole in what
you
he
can
would
tell
be
they're
like.
familiar, but
He'd be
it kind
like
of makes sense because of a
50.
storyline of a future arc. I don't know. I get it. And then, Rogue was originally a villain. Like she was part of I forget what they called like the League
No,
of Villains.
Rogue was originally picked up by whatever fled and then joined the Brotherhood of Mutants. But she would have been
Brotherhood.
a
I'm sorry.
teenager. But she would have been a teenager.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be out of the question that older men do like teens, but yeah, she does have a history with Magneto. So, like, I don't know. It doesn't seem completely out of the blue, but I do kind of hate it because, yeah, I loved the couple of
Because
Rogue.
there is the
To me,
view
that was
there
awesome.
is the view of Mystique was viewed as a mother, and that does beg the question when they're going to introduce Mystique, if they ever
Yeah.
do, because
Well, they did last time. So I mean, like she exists in this world, but they did make sure that she was Nightcrawler's mother in a previous episode, I believe, and then they've
well, and the big thing
the fact
is
that
it
she raised
wasn't
Rogue.
she raised Rogue, and but the that is seated, and but in the trial of Magneto, it goes through because you have the collaring thing occurs as well. That's in the first episode. I forgot to mention that, where they capture
Yeah,
the guy. And to be fair, that is a callback to the original series with the suppression collars.
for sure. And the whole Genosha thing, yeah, it's really kind of cool. So it doesn't seem like out of the blue, but then we do get this new character, and I'm forgetting his name, but his introduction is very much like Jubilee. Like it feels like it's very much mirroring the
I figured he was Sunspot.
Yeah, I was not sure, but yeah, it kind of confirms that when I see his powers. But
That's Sunspot. I'm like,
it was pretty cool, kind of seeing him mirror Jubilee's introduction, if you will, and kind of viewing this team from the outside
to
eyes.
be fair, that's how he was introduced in the comics. He was rescued.
It makes sense. Yeah, but I like a lot of the kind of callbacks to kind of that
But the
first
problem with Miss Sparkles, by the way, with Jubilee, the way she was depicted in the '90s, who was more useless, her or Dazzler?
Hey, man, did you see her at the rave in this episode? She is not useless. She can do sparkles with her hands. It's great.
Look, they actually changed her powers at one point. They said it's energy projection, like she has more powers. Like her power is like because in the '90s, just creating sparklers is really good luck fighting Sentinels with that. Get squished. Um,
Hey, but at the party afterwards, she's going to be a hit.
don't. Some mutants are good, some mutants are bad, and some are like have are just actually useless. So like they do change her powers. Like I think which would revamp it was because at one point she gets like during the necrosis storyline, she gets like vampire powers mixed in, and
Hmm.
then they later
Yeah, those are.
change her.
I think I was out of it by then.
They
That's
they changed her powers to like have they are more energy based. They actually updated Dazzler to be more energy projection, so it's not as cartoony or memey. See, Sunspot's incredibly powerful.
yeah, and they kind of allude to that too.
Like because he's in there when he first leaves, but that is mirroring the Jubilee. But in the Trials of Magneto, that's what we get to now. Magneto goes on trial, and
Sorry, before we get to that, should we talk about so they do so Jean Grey uses, or who we think is Jean Grey uses Cerebro to track down. She has that weird vision. They realize that the new master mold is in the middle of the, I believe, Sahara Desert. So they
yes,
go there to stop it.
well, that's where
But
they
what
were
do you think of that
deconstructing a
action?
lot of Sentinels.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd need a master mold to make a ton of them. But what did you think of the that action scene where they actually go and they? It's the first time it shows them all in action.
That
I thought
actually
that was pretty
is
amazing.
good. It actually the oh, I forgot about that. That was actually really good. That's a callback to the original.
And the to me, my X-Men, which is what they named the first episode of this
Yeah,
series. And then you get the callback with this time Cyclops saying it because now he's leading the team. But I thought that was awesome, like him jumping out of, or I guess the plane gets
I'm trying
destroyed.
to
So
give
they're
too
all
many
falling.
spoilers in
So
case people watch it. Great.
it's kind of amazing. But seeing what they're doing with Cyclops' optic blasts, where he's using it kind of to push opponents away, he's using it to brace his fall from a great height. It's kind of amazing. It's everything like I wanted them to do
Don't
back
give
in the
too many
90s.
spoilers for people who haven't seen it. That's why I was purposely leading it
I'm not
boring.
saying like what's happening in the fight, but like he's using his optic blasts for way more than he was
Okay,
using
in the
before, which
'90s,
is great.
the concept right is they are is concussive blasts,
hmm
which
But
it's
he's able
very
to
different
use it in
versus.
many different ways, which is great. I just love
So
the
he
animation
learns it. Now I will say Cyclops is still a whitey.
of it. In ways. But he actually shows his full capabilities and his I don't know. He's more than just the whiny guy. Where I think sometimes they
Well, he's
just
also
make
the
him that.
more. He's not even the stuck-up Boy Scout, because he was more of the other one. To be fair, if you ask anyone who followed the old series who they despised more, it would be Cyclops, because Cyclops was always an asshole.
Mm.
Which,
Um, and then the other cool thing, and they showed it in the trailer. So I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you've probably at least seen the trailer. But what did you think about Gambit riding Wolverine's back into battle and charging him up? Um,
sharing
and
and combining
no,
powers, that is nothing. That is actually very old, and it's very good to see.
so I was wondering. So I was always a fan of Gambit, but from what I knew with his power set, like he charges things with kinetic energy. But don't they have to explode, or am I wrong on that?
He has two different powers. Like he can throw something and it explodes, or he can he can just make something energy.
Hmm.
Like that's why his staff, like he can kinetically charge his staff and beat people with it. Like it's
Well, that's the
very weird. It's in
he
the
does
realm.
that in the same scene, and he kind of makes a small explosion by throwing his staff, which is charged up the same way that it looks like he charged up Wolverine, and then that explosion propels Wolverine. I just would have thought that that would make Wolverine explode, but if he's got a different power set, I guess I'm just not aware of it from my limited Gambit knowledge. Although he is one of my favorite characters. Apparently, I didn't know he had the second ability to just charge things with energy. But yeah, what
Well,
Wolverine do with that energy is
It's really like Rogue. They still follow the same power set of Rogue. Rogue's afraid to touch people because she drains them. And bear in mind, that's why Captain Marvel disappeared for like 10 years.
yeah, the best Captain Marvel is Rogue, and I love.
Rogue actually got her first major powers and kept them from touching Captain Marvel. And that was in the original lore in the show.
She was the better Carol Danvers. or at least the power set.
Well, it took a while for her to come back, but there's also an ability that uh Rogue has. Like the idea she can't physically touch anyone, she can't have sex, she can't do anything like that. Where she drain somebody. Like it's it's very much the callback to the Southern Belle. It's not that she's nerfed in a way, but they do make her the Southern Belle. And that's in the first episode too.
And they have kind of significantly amped up some of the drawings of a few of them. Specifically Gambit, man. They tried to make Gambit even sexier, and
Oh, Twinkier,
yeah,
yes.
it's
I've seen.
interesting.
I've seen. Now the big thing too is you would have thought, because in the trial of Magneto, right, it goes through Magneto. It's literally saying, because there's two origins of Magneto. It's like literally saying he's a survivor of the Holocaust, right?
Yeah, and
And
depending on which origin, that's definitely one of the origins.
that, like, and then mutant persecution, right? So he does do evil things, but it's because of humans' hatred. And that's the interesting thing about the trial of Magneto. Now, you do see the guy who was defeated in the first part make the rifle with the suppression collar. Like, I called it correct what that was. Now, it's weird seeing the Sentinel blasters, by the way. I did not like them in the first episode.
Yeah, it is kind of distracting. The Mega
It
Man.
looks like really bad Iron Man, like God, like a sci-fi. You stick your hand in a gauntlet.
But they're trying to, say like they are becoming less human as well. They're moving away from human weapons and becoming more machine type weapons. I get what they're trying to do, but I'd have to think that there's a better way to portray it. Like you're right that the Sentinel blasters that look like Mega Man's hand cannon, it's a little weird. But
I
I don't
guess if you're gonna fight mutants, not all mutants are like very super strong. That's why I say like early on, like you would never have Jubilee in a fight in the '90s show because she could not fight stuff. That's why I say you have mutants that are just mutants, and then you have others that are combat capable. Wow, you were praising Jubilee earlier. You're wrong. Don't dare. Don't you dare. Um.
So it was all a ruse. Apparently, Sparkles has hated Jubilee since she was younger. Fair
Well,
enough.
when they revamp
Not
her
my
power,
favorite. I like her more in
when
the
they
past.
revamp her power set, she's more useful in the comics. Like she can do energy absorption and shoot the energy back, kind of like a smaller version of Bishop.
Well, I mean, if you're going to say
She's
you
a
don't like him,
teenager, Miss
Yellow is
Sparkles.
whiny. I
Miss
mean,
Sparkles, she's a
fair.
whiny teenager in the '90s.
And when you
She's
have to hate Wolverine for the same reason, like there is that whole episode where he's just sitting there stroking the picture of Scott and Jean, and he's wearing yellow, crying. Fair enough. I would just hate to,
I'm not going to even
write
get
off all
into.
characters in yellow.
I don't even want to get into the whole fan fiction on that crap. That's a diatribe for another day on modern Marvel in the last few years. Apparently, they're a polyamorous power couple in Krakoa, and
They're all cool.
Dane loved that crap.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hate that concept. It's always like the love triangle. Nah. They
I
tried
was
that
getting
in
to
the old. They tried that in the X-Men
molecule.
animated series, and it sounded crap too back then.
Well, I didn't hate the depiction, but there were implications. But yeah.
Well, the whole thing, right, is the team up in powers is really good because X-Men have done that for years in the comics. That was the design of them. Like, that's actually really good. But in the trial of Magneto, right? That's what that episode is. He because he's like, well, he kind of shows him he can still. They're like, yeah, Magneto, my stuff, our weapons are that, but they forgot the helicopters. People forget how powerful Magneto is.
Yeah, he is also Omega level. I
Oh,
don't know.
that's what's funny, by the way. In that was added from the original context of the show, the Omega level mutants, because that wasn't a thing until after X-Men '97.
For sure. And I guess we forgot to mention, but it is called out that one of the team members is an Omega level threat. So that is kind of
Well,
cool.
to be fair, Storm has a lot of different powers. Like, to
For sure.
now, they finally say she can tap into mystical powers as well, and then to do the weather. Like, there's the always been the thing with Magneto. Magneto could literally flip if he got pissed enough. Can literally flip the magnetic poles in an area.
Yeah.
Like, like the concept. It took him doing child's play in the '90s to like in the this is in the comics, one of the greatest. I do like how X-Men the show is actually showing mirroring the comics, which was in like '97 or like that. It was like Fatal Attraction. Wolverine's bones recovered. He literally pulls the adamantium out of Wolverine's body.
Yeah, that was a crazy arc.
The Fatal Attraction, and it's a cover I want. It's not entirely expensive because yes, it was overprinted, and the concept of it, he is extremely powerful. Anything that has magnetic pull, he
Yeah.
can manipulate.
Well, and I like the way so at the end of the first episode, they do show it as well in the trailer, so I don't think I'd be spoiling much.
Miss
But
Sparkles,
he is
Omela
speaking,
Sec.
yeah,
The
Charles
show
Little.
is
Oh,
tied into the comics.
but it's kind of cool because like you see just the corners of the book, just the metal corners are what's glowing, so you can tell that like that's how he's able to do it. He's not just but any bit of metal, any bit of magnetism, like that dude has complete control over it. So I can see why they are making him Omega level, and I guess they also did that with Storm. But if you remember, like when Xavier met her, she was pretending to, or not pretending, she was a goddess. So it's like I don't know, she
She
already
is
had
a
a lot of like
goddess in her
powers before
village
joining the team.
because she can control weather. That's actually a big thing with Storm. Storm has always had these big powers. Like she can manipulate weather. Like the main X-Men are kind of Omega level mutants in a way. So like the concept of she can
Not
just,
Jubilee.
yeah, because in her village she was viewed as a god.
Yeah, which is awesome.
She was also originally a pickpocket.
Yeah, some of them, I guess a lot of them have, CD Pass. So we would have Storm that way, we'd have Rogue that way, we'd have Gambit that way. Uh, I'm sure Morph used his abilities to do bad before as
Well,
well.
Morpher Changeling was a villain prior. So in the trial of Magneto, right? It's like short. A lot of these people need to see themselves because the setting up is, oh, he defends what he does, but he goes, where did you guys? Because even the UN Council putting him on trial makes themselves look like whatever. Humans can defend themselves because they're not happy. Like they don't understand why Magneto's saving people. Now, it's not like Magneto's 100% a bad guy. Now, the introduction of Executioner is really interesting. You didn't know who Executioner was, did you?
Yeah, I definitely remember him from the run of comics, like, way back in the day, but,
Mhm.
I thought it was kind of fun the way that they brought him back in and the way that they were able to do it. Obviously, they're, like, making his threat level way lower than it
Oh,
kinda was.
he was always really powerful. Like he has like a Sentinel blaster kind of thing, like Sentinel eye thing on a suit. Like he could reflect a lot because like Scott's powers come from him. Like there's a revamping. They're like concussive blast in the animated show, but in reality they are like if he opens his eyes kind of thing. And I have a nitpick with the fight at the UN, though, by the way. But the concept is he has the ability to. It'd be curious if they explore it. His powers come from another dimension. When he opens his eyes, he's literally firing the force of another, like, energy dimension.
Yeah, that his eyes are just portals, which is kinda interesting. I kinda like that idea,
I
and
mean,
then
technically, him and his brothers are all powerful to a degree. He's like his
yeah.
brother's Havoc. I will be
And
very
they could have
curious.
brought him up in the previous, I think it was season 4, where, for some reason, Havoc and, Cyclops are not able to damage each other with their own blasts. They're immune to each other, which is interesting. I used to love
In
Havoc and
hell, if they actually introduce Vulcan.
not yet, but, we're meeting some
I
others.
don't even know. You would have to do a whole thing on Vulcan. Vulcan is his brother as well. But there's a lot of mutants missing. And, like,
For sure.
apparently, and I wasn't sure, right? Okay, clarify this for me. At the fight at the UN, was that Morph turning into Colossus and Lady
Yeah.
Deathstroke?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So that's why they're bringing in a bunch of different cameos of different, X-Men. They're able to do it through Morph, which is kind of awesome. But that's not something new that they just did for 97. They did that at the end of season
Well,
5.
his powers got amplified by Mr. Sinister in the
For
old.
sure.
Because this is the thing is to understand X-Men like this show is using the comics as well as the old TV show. They are using it as shown by the thing. And I don't want to show the animated trailer because, as I said, YouTube is. You know what's funny? I showed you the Shogun trailer, none of those got flagged. But if you show something from Disney, it gets flagged.
They like to, keep a lid on their products, but I think if as long as you're pausing it, supposedly you're good, but, yeah, I've definitely
It
been
could be
picked up
playing
on
in the
the copyright
background.
thing.
You have to look, and it doesn't copyright strike. But so at the end, this is weird. Like he gets into the rage because the beam with the collars. They kind of explain the collars, why the collars work. Because oh, by the way, the funny part it's in like I think it's in the first episode. You see Bishop's time travel band.
Yeah, again, it kinda mirrors when Jubilee wakes up the first time at the X mansion. Again, this new guy, when he wakes up, you see Beast tampering on that. I thought that was a cool callback, but also, it kinda shows you that maybe Beast is working on that, so maybe we're gonna see some time travelers later on this season,
There's a
which
lot of
would be
scenes,
fun.
right? Like they could go because that would be the thing is because I'm like, how is Bishop in this timeline stably? Because that's why like they're going with Bishop. And I'm not saying Bishop does, because there's a time he could stay because like there's Cable. So in like the second, right? Then Jean in the battle of the UN goes in. She's giving birth or like going into labor, so Wolverine has to
Mhm.
rush her to the hospital. Now there is that scene where the doctor would not deliver the mutant baby, and
Well, so before we get to that, like, over the top scene, there is a bit of comedy where Wolverine is not sure what she's talking about when it's like it's time, and then she's using her powers to like throw
Oh
the
yes, that is
at him.
funny.
I thought that was hilarious. I really liked that, which they weren't able to do fun things with the animation in the previous one, where again, I think little bits like that just kind of show off what they can do with the slightly higher animation budget. But yeah, I really dug that entire scenario. And then yes, you get a bigoted doctor who's refusing to deal with mutants. And then that brings up a weird thing with Rogue's powers. It kind of seems like they've changed her powers to where she can get somebody's.
That is not
So
a change. That is not a
is
change.
that not a change? So I didn't
No.
know that she could just get somebody's knowledge by touching them. Has that always been a thing?
I didn't know about this, and it's what's funny about this show. It's getting a callback to certain people. So there was a time, I forget what they called her. Blurred Without Fear called her something. They called her like the Vivicodex or what? Like a Vivicodex, where she could touch people's powers and duplicate them at will, whoever she's touched. And that's actually in the current Rogue's power base.
Oh, cool. I guess I just hadn't
But
realized because before they talked about powers, and then they specifically refer to it as
her
"Oh,
absorbing
your power."
memory, like take
That's
the
cool. If they're
memories.
not retconning it if it is a thing. Like hell yeah, I just wasn't familiar with that. Same thing with Gambit's not exploding thing, but hell yeah.
Well, it's more weird because you get to that part, and of course, the closing parts of the episode are, I forget what part it is, right? Where it goes through and Magneto takes them both into orbit, I guess, because it's metal, he can manipulate the guy's armor. And he ties them to basically like the UN symbol and takes them into orbit, near Earth
Which I
orbit.
thought was awesome, and you can really see like how much of a threat Magneto would be if he wanted to be.
Oh,
Which
yeah, the whole threat. What I
cool.
mentioned earlier, he could shift the entire orbit, that magnetic sphere of shit. Yeah, he's a lot more powerful than it could be. It's like Polaris's, like his children are powerful too. Like they may not be like being able to spend time, but like Polaris is definitely Scarlet Witch is not his daughter, more the other, but um, the idea of Polaris is like a mini version of him. Like Magneto, like anything that has blood in it. Let's say you have iron in your blood, he could take your blood out of your body. Hmm.
And
Did you?
Sparkles was asking, like, why do we need Professor X dead? We technically don't. It's just kind of he was struck with a particular disease that was killing him last time, so they shipped him off planet. So maybe it's just a cover story for him being off planet and he can only survive in space. But it's a little unclear because it kind of seems like he could bring his space cerebro if he's alive in space
He
and
could.
still. But yeah, it's a little unclear if they've kind of retconned it or if it's just kind of a cover story. But I'm hoping they'll explain that soon. But yeah, that was kind of a sad final episode of season 5 of the original series where yeah, Professor X said he was in a coma for most of the last episode, but he's able to say his goodbye to all the X-Men. So it is kind of like he's dying, but instead, yeah, he was magically able to go to space and be saved by I can't remember her name. Tiamat just said it a minute ago, but yeah. So I don't know. I'm hoping that they have just been using this as a cover story, and we do see him later. They have kind of confirmed that the voice actor who is playing the voice of Professor X. So it sounds like we'll have him later, although we did have him in a few scenes where Morph impersonated Professor X. So I'm not 100% certain if we are going to get the real one back, but I hope we will. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. And then there's a bunch of weirdness that kind of comes up with interpersonal relationships as well on this. But it's not necessarily so. It's specifically Gambit and Rogue's relationship. It appears to be kind of strong at the beginning of this, and then all of a sudden, with the introduction of Magneto, you can tell that Rogue has a backstory with him. So yeah, it's kind of interesting, but it does go kind of back to that whole Rogue's character that she longs for human touch. She's not able to get it, and it appears that she can actually touch Magneto, which is different. So, oh no, I'm not sure if Tiamat's back. I hear him way in the background, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. So, oh, you're back, sir. I was just saying the Magneto Rogue thing. Like it's kind of hinted at that they definitely had a backstory. I got to be honest, like that's a little disappointing for me as a fan of the Gambit Rogue couple, but I get it. They're kind of calling back her longing to have human touch, as I'm sure all of us have. But yeah, it is kind of interesting because there is an alternate timeline where Rogue and Magneto have married and have children, like long after. I forget what that arc was called, but a lot of the mutants are dead, so it's like that after effect. So I don't know. Like it's not unheard of. Apparently, he can do like some sort of magnetic layer on his skin. I can't remember exactly what
Age
it
of
is.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, it's after Age of Apocalypse, but
It's in Age of Apocalypse, and they have a son together.
Mm-hmm. But he basically can do like a layer of magnetism around his skin, so they're able to do skin to skin touching, and yeah. So it's not unheard of that he's trying to touch her and she's like pulling away in this. But I gotta be honest, I don't like it. If he really has changed, perhaps don't screw over one team member to try and get with another team member. Just be a good guy there. So I don't know. Do you think Magneto has completely turned a new page, or is this some sort of plan now?
Oh, I think they have officially done it.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, I definitely feel bad for Gambit. Watching him drop the Queen of Hearts card, it hit me in the feels. But they did bring Gambit back, and they made his animation a lot. I've heard a lot of people say that they've turned him into like a twink or whatever, but I don't know. He looks a lot more like the actual comic book animation to me, where he was a little bit like more slender, where like Cyclops had more of like a shoulder build. He was always a little bit slighter Gambit to me, but I don't know. So I kind of dig the animation, but apparently a lot of people don't like the fact that they gave him well-defined gutters, if you will.
Well, the thing
I
is,
don't know. I
right?
dig it.
The thing is, right? Are you going to bring in the alternate timelines?
I don't think they have, but I mean, they have brought in Cable and they have brought in Bishop, so obviously there's alternate futures, and they've mentioned that. Like,
So the
I don't
idea there is
for
something you
Magneto
missed
run
in the
the X-Men.
flashback, knowing that that's Cable, not
Ye-
the daughter. Like, because I was like, okay, so that's Cable. Now, I will say this leads into something that they do spoil in this episode. Get to it. Is the reason why there's a red image of death. Now, it could be a future, right, with Master Mold, yes. But once this explanation comes out, and this is going to be a shock to more people, if you don't know who this is, you see, I guess, where you are, well, before we move on to Dune. So there's a knock at the door, and,
Mhm.
and it's Jin.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. So, which is the real Gene? Uh,
Now, do you know who the current Gene is?
I get a feeling. So that's the other thing that they did. Like in the intro, Jean Grey does look a little bit different, and her card is put as the second one, but also her hair is very straight and down compared to what it normally looks like. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. It kind of is implying that perhaps this isn't the exact same Jean Grey that we knew, but
Here's the thing. I knew who this was during episode 1. Confirmed it in the second.
Kind of makes sense. And then it kind of gives
Madeline
you a new,
Pryor.
yeah, and it kind of gives you a new vision on, or a new idea of what her vision was when she was kind of bombarded when they're trying to find out where the master mold is. But yeah,
There's
it
also
layers to it.
in that vision. There's also the attack of the Phalanx.
Uh-huh. There's a lot more going on in that vision. I really watched that episode back, and I was really
Go
kind of
in, I will guarantee you when you see it, and anyone who knows it knew that was Madeline Pryor. Now, this
well,
is
and then they end up naming the kid Nathan, so that checks with the comic continuity. They're doing it a little bit differently, but I don't know. It's interesting. I wasn't sure where they were going to go with it or which
she is
child.
basically a clone. So she was created by Chris Claremont in 1983. Originally a love interest and became a long-standing thing, but she is a clone of, and she does wind up having it, but she does realize that they do realize that she is uh different, and she actually takes uh on powers of, she has all of Jean's powers, but she's eventually, see, her home dimension is limbo. Now you get why I say the red. If you
Yeah.
do not know what limbo is, it's the same power that Liliana Rasputin can tap into. And in the, I might be able to bring it up on Twitter, like I'll be able to show it. So at the end of each episode, they're using from the game, the classic arcade game.
Yeah, which I don't know if you remember like those characters where they're kind of spinning around. I don't know if you remember like how bad that looked in the original one where they try to do like 3D animation of each
Oh
character.
god, they're so missing a boat if they do not make a game. Reboot the arcade game
Oh,
on
I love
this.
that arcade game, man. I wasted so much money on that thing. That was awesome.
The thing about it is, right? Because what's funny, and I mean, I have to get into it when I find out more. Uh, so the thing about it is, right? Is like they showed, what was it? The someone, and this is the tweet. When I find this, they, you know what's funny too? Who's missing? And I'll be very sad if they don't show it. Because when Storm loses her powers, it's kind of like forewarning. And to take her out of the show feels, to find this image, but it's something that uh it shows, here it is. Here, I found it. So, if you're not familiar with the X-Men 97, the X-Men arcade, it's this. If they do not pay this off, so do you know who these characters are? So there's Cyclops, right? So Cyclops, this is Liliana Rasputin, his sister. Long shot.
And then Havoc, who we've met in the show before. That's one of the weirder costumes they have him in.
Mm-hmm. That's Future Cable. Now, I think they haven't shown these yet. I think this is the teaser episode.
And the guy who is player two, he is the like fish out of water here. He is the one that has met kind of like Jubilee in the very first
That
episode of the
is
cartoon.
Sunspot.
He is that character, so he is scared. He's not a seasoned pro or anything at this point. He's the noob.
I mean, to be fair, right? This is
Stupid
imagery from.
sexy Gambit. I don't know. So a lot of people hate that he's wearing a cutoff. I don't know. They always did that in the comics, especially the '90s ones.
So, I don't like the fight at the UN. How Scott gets his ass kicked, dude.
I kind of love it. It makes him like the
Yeah.
executioner an actual threat. Like not only does he have this weapon, but he's somewhat impervious to most of their abilities. I really dug that. But
Well, that's part of it, right? He does this. But it's going to be weird how they explain Madeline Pryor.
yeah, I'm kind of wondering how they're gonna go
This
into the
image,
stupid
little
sexy
quick
Gambit.
looking.
I like it, man. Like they kind of gave everybody the same body shape in the old one, where like like when they're playing basketball or whatever, everybody
See,
is almost the
here's
exact.
where here's why I said when you show Jean initially, she has flat hair. So if you go and look, this was the warning sign. This is her,
Mhm.
right? Flat hair. This is her trading card that was released for the show.
Yep, it looks a little different.
You knew something was up. And that means they're going to talk now. Now I will say, who will the clone daddy be?
And they did some weird things in the comics with the whole Madeline Pryor, Jean Grey thing, and Scott Summers being in the middle and just kind of kicking one to the curb. That was weird. So I wonder how they're going to tackle it with the show, because I always thought the comics was a little weird how they tackled that particular
This is
thing.
why when I say like these people are, this is why I said they're over the top, like Saturday morning villain cartoons. Friends of Humanity is this is what basically if it gets struck later, this is what Magneto can do. Anything that's metal, just smack people to death. Yep.
It's pretty amazing, man. Like he would be a super.
He's not even thinking about it. Just
no, it's just peripheral around him. It's awesome, man. I always dug that character,
do
and
you know
then
who's
he goes
missing
on
from?
such a journey.
Do you
through
realize who's missing from the lineup though?
There's a few. Who are you talking about specifically?
Iceman.
Well, I mean, he's there in picture. You can see him with his little booties on. But I think for a moment, no, never mind. Sorry, that was season 5. There's a moment when Morph acts as Iceman or whatever is Iceman. But yeah, you're right. We haven't seen him this season.
This is part of the vision.
Yeah,
But
there's some kind of fun stuff kind of hidden in that vision. It's really multidimensional in many ways. But yeah, I really dug that. I thought
and
they
see,
tackled
this
that
is the
well.
executioner. The executioner comes from the comics, and I am surprised they brought him in.
Yeah, especially with what seems to be just a bit part, but what he's able
He
to
can
accomplish,
easily take out a couple of X-Men because, like, he has the.
well, he kicked the shit out of Cyclops. So I mean, yeah,
Right. The reason why he looks like that is that's the executioner. Now, this is the scene he was talking about with Cyclops landing himself without the parachute.
which it looks
That is the
awesome.
moment that's.
I'm sure it would glass the desert, but it looks awesome, man.
Now, the big thing is, we move on to the more. It is See, Gray, depending on your availability, we may do it episode by episode, or we might let you want to let it chunk.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's do it. I'm digging this. There's 10 episodes. We're 20% of the way there. Let's do it.
You want to chunk it, or do you want to like?
Dealer's choice, man. However you want to attack this.
Well, remember, Fallout's released on the 19th. Patrick wants to do it too.
Well, I could start watching that. I got to be honest, I'm not as familiar. I only played one of the Fallouts, so.
Here's the thing about Sunspot, right? Sunspot is literally what his powers are. Compared to Jubilee, he's actually really good. Like,
hey, Jubilee makes the party fun, man. Like, did you see the way that she was dancing at that rave? It was awesome.
I mean, hey, details. Now, in the discussion, right? So, I saw part 2 of. It took me a little while, and I went back and watched parts. Now, for those who haven't seen Dune Part 2.
Oh, shit. Sorry. I kind of tuned out for a second. We're switching on to Dune?
Yes.
How familiar are you with Dune? Have you read the books and everything?
Very familiar.
Nice. I read them once, but it was like
the book.
okay.
Even Neurotic really had a hard time reading the book. The book is a tome.
No, I really loved it. Just I haven't gone back and read the book or anything like that, so I'm kind of going off of my knowledge on it. But it's been a while. But they're amazing books, and I love the whole Game of Thrones aspect that they have going on in the background with the Spacing Guild and with the different houses. But kind of don't get those.
There was a discussion
I understand why
around that popped up. There was a discussion on YouTube that popped up. Tolkien didn't like Frank Herbert's work.
For sure. And, Frank Herbert wasn't too into Tolkien's work either. So,
and both are basically similar. Dune is equivalent to the space. High fantasy is to what Lord of the Rings is. To Lord of the Rings is to the Bible for high fantasy. Dune is to what sci-fi operas are founded upon. Does that make sense, Gray?
Sorry, I was responding, but I was muted. Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. Like, Dune kind of is the Lord of the Rings of the sci-fi world.
It is the Bible by which most sci-fi is based upon. Like the sci-fi, like even Ender's Game and stuff like that used bits of it. But it's set in a
I mean, you gotta use it as a reference. Like, it is what things are going to be compared to.
I mean, Starship Troopers has its own, but like Isaac Asimov is up there as well. So
sure. His just didn't seem to be like I like Asimov a lot, but he didn't seem to have like I don't know what you want to call that, like kind of a series that created a world that everything was in, where, that is what Tolkien did. That is what Herbert did. It wasn't like all of Asimov's novels were related or anything like that. So you're right. Like, everyone does kind of go to Asimov, but his worlds aren't nearly as grand.
I mean, it is like what it is. It's kind of like what it is, right? In the term of, okay, the first Dune. The Dune is a tome. Okay. Now, the funny thing about this is, Dune being the tome that it actually is, it makes sense. Like, I think Arch and others had an issue. They couldn't see Timothy Chalamet. By the way, he has the role to play Matt Dillon in a biopic here soon. You didn't know that, did you, Gray?
Wait, he's playing Matt Dillon in a biopic?
Yeah.
Why is there a biopic of Matt Dillon?
I have no idea. I just heard about it. He's apparently a bit man in Hollywood now.
How everyone is just so on board with this Timothy Chalamet thing. So he ruined another one of my. Well, I wouldn't say he ruined another. He ruined one of my childhood favorites. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is just amazing, and like the whatever you want to call it, the hook line for this thing is find out how Willy became Wonka, and we
I
don't get
can't.
that ending of
Why
Wonka.
do you
I
hate
hate
that?
so much.
Is that like your? It's not like your take. By the way, if you want to sit through and review on the 26th of April, Velma season 2 is supposed to begin.
Oh, I'm waiting. I've got it up.
The
It's in
season
show.
2 that
I
has
know.
been promised for a
Oh, it's gonna be
while.
so great, man.
It's gonna be great.
Finally,
If you want to review that, I'll
I
guarantee
want to.
I'll roast the
I've got
shit
to
out
still
of
make
it.
my video of why everyone should watch Velma. It's amazing. Mindy Kaling blessed us all, and she shall again.
God, just be no, but seriously, Dune. Dune has a lot of philosophy in it. It's like set like 10,000 years in like the future, kind of thing, right? Or so there's a lot of theocracy. It's kind of like Game of Thrones in space, but it's a lot of nobility with the Bene Gesserit. Now,
Sure.
I accept that they did not want to touch the word jihad. There's people who want him to see a Butlerian jihad movie, but that's because in this future, right, you have the highest form of combat. Like you have the guilds, the spacing guilds, and all of that. When you're introduced, and I think this is like his son actually fleshed out like House has really good books like House Harkonnen and like House Atreides, how the big houses came about. Um, and comes down to a lot how the Bene Gesserit like because the Butlerian Jihad is why there's no thinking robots in Dune. You didn't know that, did you, Gray?
No, it's what's kind of the backstory. I wish they had kind of put that a little bit more forward in the film. Because like that is kind of the conceit that like computers, AI took over. There was a giant war against them, so computers are just
Well,
out. So instead, now we're dealing with mentats who are essentially like humans who are they imbibe the spice, it stains their lips, but they're essentially human computers at this point. And that's what Paul is being groomed to be, which I feel like he could have done a better job of
and I
setting that.
have to start by talking about Dune Part 1, because if you don't understand Dune Part 1, you're probably not going to understand Dune Part 2. They lay a work, and it is a separate work. Like, the guy that they got to play Paul's dad is an absolute Chad. Like, that makes Duke Leto look, it's probably one of the best performances I've ever seen of Duke Leto.
I absolutely loved Oscar Isaac in there. I thought he was the best part of that first movie. There are a few people that I wish it had given us a little bit more time and kind of fleshed out their characters more, like we get in the books. And he's one of them, but I still thought his performance was
I mean,
amazing.
even with the race changed,
Hmm.
Fremen scientists, it didn't even ruin the film. But my
No.
concerns have come forward with part 2 about Chani. I was in a section of Mr. H video, and they go, "Well, Chani's not going to ruin the series." Lo and behold, I was right.
Well, they made like a bunch of changes with the Fremen thing. So I don't know. I
Before
kind of
we touch on part 2,
like
part 1 literally ends with like the Harkonnens wiping out the Atreides. Now, part 2 is like half of it is he's waking up and organizing the Fremen. Now,
and there's a time jump in the book, and we don't get that in the movies. He wanted it more compressed to like a 6-month time span instead of a 2-year one, which muddies things up a bit.
Because there's the thing between the Chani relationship and Paul, they see each other in visions. That's established in the book.
Yes, but then they also have more time together, and they actually get to like work on the relationship, and it feels like it's more fleshed out rather than in the movie. It's really quick. Like, okay, so they've had visions of each other, but now they sit on a sand dune next to each other, and okay, now they're just a couple. It's great. I don't know. I think the book does kind of show you a little bit more of their relationship, and then like
Because
there
in
is
the
the
movie,
fire
right,
character.
in part two, what gets me in part two is her name when she's revealed. Even in the book, she is literally named after the child of destiny. You know that, right?
Yeah, and her character is a lot more. It's changed, and we can definitely discuss like why Denis Villeneuve decided to change it.
I
But
don't want his reason, and she doesn't believe in the prophecy. Well, that's like her
yeah,
sister. Like,
which is so she's just a friend, that other one who then does start to believe the prophecy. So it's kind of weird. Like they're using Shawnee as kind of I don't know, the naysayer or whatever, which sucks because that's not really what her character is. She fully believes in Paul in the books, and they even have a child together in the books, and that really strengthens their
well, that's
relationship. And
the
then,
twins that happens in Children of Dune, or like towards Dune Messiah, actually.
but she's more of a believer in this, so it is different. I understand where they want to put kind of so what Denis Villeneuve was saying was Frank Herbert imagined this world where men and women were equal, and he says it numerous times, but he doesn't really show that. Like, you know, uh, Chani is kind of pushed away at the end, where Paul
No,
is going.
before we get to that, that's
All right,
part
fair
of
enough.
it. Before, because you're seeing the warning signs about Shawnee. I said Shawnee was going to be a strong female character. Like, the fact alone they leave out uh, the sister is amazing to me. And that takes away from storytelling of how Dune is supposed to go. It's supposed to be the abomination that kills the Baron.
For sure. And it always comes off a little weird. Like even if you look at David Lynch's version of it is odd because you essentially have this child who has all the knowledge of their ancestors. So it's a fully sentient, fully speaking adult inside of this like 2-year-old's body.
No,
Because they did the time compression.
no, she aged faster.
Yes, but she's still kind of colloquially known as like knife baby or whatever. It still would be odd. Like even if you had everything else with like the same reverence that everything is shown in Denis Villeneuve's movie, if you have like a kid with a knife, I don't know that that's necessarily going to come off. I think it's going to come off comical no matter what. Like in the Lynch movie, that's kind of
The original one's weird too.
no, that's what I mean. Like it's kind of one of those scenes that people kind of parody and they kind of point to that, like this is this weird, almost absurdist comedy moment. But yeah, you're right. Like it's what's supposed to happen in the movie. I just think it would be
Reverend mothers
hard
are
to
not
depict
supposed to
that
drink
character.
that's the reason why the they're not supposed to drink the water of life while they're
If they're
pregnant.
pregnant. For sure. And it did give her, like the full experience, full memory of like all their ancestors. And I really wish they had gone into that a little heavier in the movie. He kind of shows a little bit of it and then shows that they have like a psychic bond, the baby and the mother, but it doesn't really go into the fact that like she's got all the memories of all of her ancestors and everything like that. And then Paul ends up getting the memories of all of his ancestors when he ends up
I have
imbibing it
to
as
check
well.
something up. I'm gonna check
I
something
think
up.
I just think they could have gone into that like a little bit more. Like it's kind of implied, but they don't say exactly what like the water of life does, where you kind of know a little bit more when you're reading the book. But I think all of my problems with it just stem from the runtime because we're getting essentially, I think it's 5.5 hours in total between the two movies. Maybe it's 5:45. But I think if this were a series where we had like 10 episodes, there'd be so much more that you could fill out. You could kind of show some of the backstory. You could kind of show the Spacing Guild. But it's kind of a matter of priorities, like what you can show in like 2.5 hours, two chunks of that. So I can see why he kind of put some of those down. And then He also wants to show the women a little bit more powerful. So there's other changes that he kind of made. I get it. So he wants to show the Bene Gesserit as opposed to like the Spacing Guild and as opposed to the houses. So they're the ones kind of manipulating the board, which they still are in the books, but there's other forces also trying to
Now, if you
manipulate.
want to get into the whole thing of the manipulations of the Bene Gesserit, like the one
He just
that sleeps
focuses
with,
on that a lot more in the movies than
oh
I mean, it's
well,
going on in the book,
no,
but there's multiple parties like
like the
playing.
fact they sleep with royalty, like there is a crime too. By the way, they forgot one character. I think even
They
David.
didn't. They filmed it. So you're talking about Lord. Shit. Now I'm blanking on his name.
They
But
forgot one character who's key that I would have been interesting to see. It's the Emperor's son.
ooh, okay. So he's not the one that I thought that you were thinking of. I thought you meant the what is he? He's like the swordsman. He's the. Mm, I'm blanking on his name. Let me.
Duncan
Let me
Idaho
know.
in the first one. Jason Momoa's character.
Duncan, Idaho.
Yeah, or the not Gurney. It was Duncan Idaho. Now I have to go back and look at it. It's been years. When does Jessica find out she's the Harkonnen's daughter? Which I have some issues with, like,
So Paul finds that out first. I don't think Jessica
Paul
does
finds that out first, actually.
in a vision. Yeah. Because he was becoming a mentat before, so he was getting ready for that, being groomed into that life of being a human computer. But once he drinks the water of life, he gets all these different possibilities, and he can kind of look at it, kind of like, I guess, Doctor Strange looks at all the different possibilities that they could do to get out of that, and he only sees one. Paul kind of says something very similar to that. But in one of the visions, he sees that he is with the Harkonnens, and he refers to him, I think, as grandfather. So that's kind of the first inkling that you get that they are related. But
She didn't know she was until Paul told her in the books. So, and it goes along the lines of, and this is why I was going to say this differently, with like the whole thing of, also too, when they introduced the Emperor. To be fair, Christopher Walken does really good, but there's a point. Christopher Walken plays Christopher Walken, so
that's the thing. Like, I can't see him as anything but Christopher Walken. He's the one character, the one actor that just takes me out. I wish it was any other actor of age than Christopher Walken, and I think you'd get that whole thing that, like, yeah, he's not really in charge, like, whatever. But all I see is like just Christopher Walken. I'm just expecting him to be like, no, like I don't know. It's
you can't unsee Christopher Walken when you see Christopher Walken.
Yeah, but fair enough. But the one that sucks. So they had his wife in there, and they actually filmed it. Timothy Blake Nelson plays.
Okay, this
Henry.
is the This is
They
the
filmed it,
Emperor.
man.
Okay, if
People
people
not
can't see this, this is the Emperor in the original one, House.
Yeah.
And that's not even what he looks like. He is depicted with red hair as youthful because he's been doing spice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, he's supposed to have red hair. It's weird that they leave out, like, he's supposed to be like with red hair. He's supposed to have that reddish hair, but he looks like Christopher Walken. This is what he's supposed to look like in the book.
And they really dropped the ball, I think, on all the spice use in it. Like, I mean, they show Baron Harkonnen or whatever doing his spice in like his tub of mud or whatever, but I don't know. Like even with the
Well,
mentats,
that's
like,
a video that I was going
I'm
to touch upon because this is the guy. I want to say he was left out, not Leto. He was Iron's sister, right? Let me see this. Let me see. This is the one. He has a child, and he gets left out. He was the one. If Paul had not see, this is the depiction of Shadow. This doesn't take me out of it, but he's supposed to have
2000
an
series was interesting.
huh?
The 2000s made for was it Sci-Fi Channel series was
Yeah,
really
actually, I
interesting.
like that though.
Yeah, I didn't hate it either, but I think that's what got me to like read the books was that series.
I'm trying to find who is her brother because she has a brother. Because there was another person who was being groomed,
I'm blanking on
and
this whole character then. I don't even remember it from the book, but I believe you.
um, I'll have to find it. But he has a son, and he was being groomed to by the Bene Gesserit to. I'll have to find it because he is supposed to. He was going to be the one.
You're not thinking Count Fenring, are you? Because like he wasn't. He was kind of his mentat, kind of his the swordsman or whatever, but he's not technically related. But I'm sure that's not who you're talking about. But it really sucks. So Denis Villeneuve doesn't believe in like any deleted scenes or any alternate cuts of it. So there's a bunch of stuff that got filmed that was confirmed that was filmed, and it's just cut from the movie. So we'll never see it. But they actually had Count Fenring in there, and his wife is still in there. She's the one who mates with
It may
Fade.
have been the other one I'm thinking of was another guy he was going to marry into Lorenz because they were ordered only to have son. No, because there was one who was like the Bene Gesserit replacement. I'll have to find it.
Because that could be Fenring. So they thought that he was going to be. So he was kind of the Bene Gesserit's mentat type of guy, and he married one of them, and then his wife is actually the one who has a baby with Fade Rafa. So I'm not sure if he's the one that you're thinking of, but he also has like a spice addiction and everything.
It's going to bother me.
Sadly, they had Timothy Blake Nelson, who is just amazing in like everything that he's in. He actually played Count Fenring, and they filmed a bunch of scenes, and it's all just gone. So that sucks. There's a little bit more that I wanted out of it. I just wish they had time, and apparently they didn't. A lot of it just got cut for time. They also brought back, I'm forgetting his name, but the Mentat from the Atreides family, who has the whole poisoning arc, where he's, also helping move things around in the background. That
Well,
he
see, they have the decree they're only supposed to have daughters, but there was another person, and it's going to bother me in the lore that I know it exists. It was
You
a
might be
son
thinking
that was
Count
the
Fenring, but I could be wrong.
Count Ring.
It could be because he's the like sword master and he's the husband of Leia Seydow. Yeah, but yeah, he is kind of part of the Bene Gesserit's plan or whatever. But
Might be
yeah, they
Count
just got completely
Ring.
cut out of the movie.
Yeah, because he was supposed to be because they were going to groom him
Yes.
to be the next emperor who could be controlled
Well, his
by.
art kind of mirrors Paul's in that he was also bred to be a mentat and bred to be this human computer thing. The Bene Gesserits have a lot of different options that they were going down, but I'm not sure if it's that dude. But I
Let
think
me
that
explain it. Hold on a second. The Sparkles. The in Dune universe, the Bene Gesserit went to the famous houses. Um, so The reason why it goes back to why Dune has this weird history compared to like Lord of the Rings. Tolkien didn't like it being pessimistic and so dark. Dune has this very much the noble houses are like the medieval families where they were interbred or bred like, but in this case it's very extreme. The Bene Gesserit bred entire bloodlines for thousands of years. And Gray, no, Gray, you
I'm
want to
sorry.
put your? That's actually what the Bene Gesserit do.
Yeah. And they've been doing like a ton of that for years. But yeah, kind of his mother, Paul Atreides' mother, goes against that and decides to have a male heir, which apparently the Bene Gesserit can decide what type of heir they're going to have, which is odd powering. But yeah, kind of interesting.
Not at least the firstborn, if
Hmm.
because who inherits the power. So it builds into this that Paul is supposed to be, but he does not. It's like Paul's the reluctant one, but compared to Dune in the books, he was always willing to take revenge and take power. See that makes sense, doesn't it now, Sparkles? You control the bloodline by controlling the women. It was actually what the Bene Gesserit did. So, like, Paul, right, is like the movies portray Paul as not wanting power. That was always my weird thing. But he was always bred for power. Am I wrong, Gray?
No, and the books do like more of a job. Like at one point, he actually says the line like "You are my enemy" to his mother. Um, yeah, she's definitely setting everything up so that it will come to pass that this prophecy is about her kid. It's very strange, and they don't quite. A little bit of it's left a little bit more open to interpretation in the movie, but you can see pretty heavily in the book that like everything that's happening is because his mother kind of put it into motion, and then she's doing her best to spread everything, all the prophecy, the
That's what
rumor.
I don't like in part two. Part two, when you get into actually, he's like, but I don't want to be the power. I want to be the fighter. That's very contradictory to Paul at that point.
For sure. And then the motivation for why he does his final act, they, again, because of that time compression, you don't have the child involved, so you don't have this even greater sense of revenge that he truly leans into, which it kind of changes his motivation, like you're saying. I don't know if you could do that in such a quick way in the movie, but I understand why he made the changes he did.
And the duel is still good because what you forget though is the black and white scenes of the Harkonnens planet that was cut from the original Dune movie. There was a movie planned before by H.R. Gyrick who came up with the Harkonnens planet. You didn't know that, did you?
Yeah. No, it's a what is it like Jarowski or Yarowski's Dune? There was this amazing one that they just went into pre-production hell on, and it never really took off. But they have the artwork for it still, and it's pretty damn amazing. But
And that's what they used for the Harkonnens planet.
mhm. And I love what they decided to do with that. They wanted to make it extremely foreign, and even though, like again, it's this other sand-like planet, it could come off just the same.
It's
So
a
they
polluted hellhole.
super white, and then they used IR cameras, which it just gives them like such an insect, otherworldly effect. Like you can almost see the veins through the skin, and it just turns your eyes into like these black bug-like eyes. It is beautifully done. Everything that they shot on that planet looks so amazing, and then it adds to like every time you see the Harkonnen soldiers, they're like shielding their eyes from this different type of sun that they're experiencing on Arrakis, except for Bautista's character. I can't remember his character's name off the top of my head. He seems to be trying to get it used to it, where like you have the other soldiers kind of like throwing up when they're not wearing goggles or whatever, because they're just not used to this extreme light.
Because they're used to like a polluted planet.
For sure. And it looks so otherworldly, and it doesn't look like, hey, this is just another version of the exact same planet. I love the way he was able to visually do that.
And
I
it's
just
also too, bear in mind, they also set up what I do like about this version of Dune is they do set up the Harkonnens to be it's like light versus dark. Gray, you can speak or do you forget to mute yourself? Gray. Okay. So I'll say
sorry, man, I was completely muted. My dogs were barking. I was trying to get them to calm down, but yeah, I apologize about that. I do like that light and dark thing. Like, you're totally right. It does seem like, not only are they dressed differently, they are like all in black when they come and invade, but you're right. They're
even the
it
black
really
and
does seem
white
like they are the
scene,
opposite of it.
like they make because the thing about Fayed, right? Fayed was a good warrior. Raban was meant to fail because Raban was an incompetent leader. You forget the Atreides are a powerhouse. Now, what feels weird to me, and it gets to the part with the combat teaching of the Fremen, he teaches them differently. I get why he's doing this, but it feels amiss. Do you remember in the original movie with them using the word power to enhance the stuff like word of command in the training scene, Gray?
Yeah. In this one, there's almost no training. Like, and again, since it's all supposed to take place in like 6 months, it's not like there's time that we're jumping over and not really seeing. I do wish they would have had more of that. Like, I mean, I guess Paul was, training with, no, I can't think of his name, Gurney. Like he was teaching him about the shields and everything, but still, it seems like the Furman are doing like this different style of fighting, this kind of
But he
rebel
trained
terror.
the Fremen like
Mhm.
the Atreides soldiers. And that is why they were fearsome. Like, it's not like the killing word kind of thing. Now, what's
Yeah,
funny
it's definitely
is
a different take on it.
it feels good to me, but like eventually it's so weird. The reason why I go back now, we can go back to the Kachani thing. She's literally acting like she loves him at the same time, just like a cow, a bossy cow.
Yeah, it's a weird turn because, like, in the books, she obviously loves him, and she's obviously part of, his unified front and part of getting the Fremen behind him. But they need some sort of opponent in this, and since it would come off very strange if she's in the Stilgar kind of role where she's just saying, "See, that's proof of the prophecy and everything." It's like, yeah, you're the person's like whatever significant other. Of course, you're going to say the prophecy is them. Where when that's coming from a different character, it has kind of a different impact. And then they are using Stilgar as kind of the comic relief for a lot of those scenes. Where again, that would be weird if it was kind of coming from Chani. So I don't know who exactly you'd have as like the opposition. So
And it's
since
not a
we're
lie that it was a. There is that moment between Paul and his mother.
yeah,
This is
there-
what's
there's a
wrong,
few.
you what you did to the people.
Yeah. And it's interesting, but I don't know, like, who else would you have from the Fremen? So since we only know a handful of them, really we're only focusing on like two. Who would you have as kind of the naysayer? Where if they kind of have it as the Chani character, it kind of makes sense and it kind of empowers women, which is what Denis Villeneuve was trying to do. Where like the original one kind of ends with Chani being said, like, "Well, don't worry, you're the concubine or whatever, but history will know that you're the one that has his real children." That's not really an empowering like message. Where instead in this one, Chani doesn't buy into it, so she's kind of the opposition voice to like,
Well,
no,
you
he's not
forget the
your
part
children.
after he drinks the water. Like, that's a really insulting thing that got a lot of people. Shad and a bunch of other people had issues with that scene, too.
For sure. I
Mystery.
wish they'd kind of gone into it and what that truly means, because I don't think that everyone got that, like, he truly has like every one of his ancestors' memories and everything. Like he's gained so much from that. It's not just like,
Oh
okay,
no, it's also because he's a Quizak Cataract. He actually is.
yeah,
He uh he actually is it. And the movie does do the pay. It's like literally I go, yeah, she will come around. Like
yeah, and
that contradicts, especially if he talks about he wants to respect women. Now, the thing about the power of visions, they're not always correct. Okay. Like there's a
for
scene.
sure. And they do a really cool thing where that same thing, like I think in the first movie he sees himself as the warrior, and then they do that exact same scene in the second one, and it's actually Chani, and then they do another vision, and it's actually Anna Taylor Joy, so his sister who's unborn. There's a way that he shows you that these visions aren't permanent, and they're not. You might not see the exact person in this vision, even if the action comes about, it might not be the person that you saw in it. Like essentially, these visions aren't written in stone. I kind of like the way that he depicts that visually, but I could see that being kind of confusing for some.
Well, the thing is, supposedly that is the actress they want to use for the sister.
And she's signed on, and she is also red hot, like Timothy Chalamet hot at this moment. So, yeah, good for them for signing her on. I would have assumed they would have used her more, but
Because and
we
what
keep
it
her in that
takes
one vision.
away, because it gets to the, I don't see them dismantling the Harkonnen operation in 6 months without like super soldier training from Paul Atreides. Because the whole thing is he is supposed to use desert power to gain
For
control
sure.
of
Well, and
Arrakis.
then his knowledge of Arrakis and the worms as well. So they change like what his threat is at the end. Like, yes, his family does have some nukes, and he does threaten to stop spice production, but it's not by just nuking.
No,
Like,
he actually does. Well, you know why nukes atomics are not supposed to be used in this era. Why is single hand? I hate to use the 40K meme. Everything revolves down to like melee combat, but ritualistic combat because of body shields stops most bullets.
yeah, and I that was one other thing. I like the combat in this, but they kind of just get rid of the whole conceit of the shields. Like after like the first battle in the first movie, they kind of don't really come up again after that. Which fair enough. I like the way that everything looks. I think it'd be weird if you did like the big
Well,
block.
no, you can make guns that slow down. They're able to penetrate shields.
For sure, the slow blade penetrates the shield. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Just visually, they kind of just got rid of the shields after the whole like Duncan Idaho fight. Like after that, there's kind of I don't think they
It
visually
feels
depicted.
weird to me too. Where did all the Sardaukar go?
Yeah,
They're
there's
not.
supposed to be the greatest army like in the whatever empire or whatever, but you're right. Like they kind of fair enough. They're kind of omitted in this film. I think all these could have been fleshed
They're
out.
supposed to be at the Battle of Arrakeen.
Yeah. Well, and the battle is supposed to get a lot bigger, and there's supposed to be a lot more casualties, and then that's supposed to be what sends Paul on the journey of no, I have to do this. I have to take this
Well,
revenge.
to be fair, bear in mind to set the scene for the epicness that is the Battle of Arrakeen. He knows there's a sandstorm. He then uses like two or three atomics, which breaks thousands of years of treaties, along with sandworms to break the shield. Actually, no, I have to go back and remember. Because one time he uses the atomics to break the shields, another he uses a sandstorm with an atomic along with worms. I think it's because the David Lynch one kind of rins. People don't.
Mhm.
It kind of. I recommend people see the David Lynch ones. They are good. I wish they
I
did.
like them. They're very stylized in a different way, but it's fun. Sting,
And
man.
No, the miniseries in the 2000s. That's what I think of the David. No, the one
Oh, I
in
thought you meant
mini.
the David Lynch one. Sorry, the like 84 one or whatever. That one's super fun.
You forget though, Gurney was Sir Patrick Stewart.
Oh, nobody could forget that, man. It needs me, my Sir Patrick. Um, yeah, I really, I have issues with that one as well, with the way that it's told. But I don't know.
Because it's the duel between, and you cannot. This is why when I disagreed with Multi, what his topic was on the thing. So, like when he learns, the big thing about Paul is Paul was having visions when even when he was on the Atreides planet, right? He
Yeah,
was already
give him
having
one
visions.
dream vision in the first movie, but yeah,
That's why when like the Fremen go, you're all wearing the suit correctly.
yeah, where it's like, really, that's the way it's supposed to be worn with the cod piece way up there. All right. But yeah, they do kind of mention it that like, yeah, he's I can't forget which way it is, but the boots out style or something like that. But
In the way
they have a line about that in the film.
but this is taken away and it's differently from the book. I don't mind the movie, but the ending with even Shawnee knows, even in the book, it's like I asked somebody who's like, you'll Romeo probably see him later in the week while I go over my thing. I said to him, do you want to know what a political marriage is? Everyone knew that was the a rule marriage was going to be.
For sure. And in the books, Chani seems to be okay with it. Like she's not super happy about it, but she understands like that reason where they don't give her that same understanding in the film. And that is because he wanted to kind of empower females. Like, is it really empowering and are you
Welcome,
equal? It's
Mitch.
like, okay, you just have to be the mistress or whatever. I
Because,
get it. It's a weird way of going about it, but I get why he did that.
and I mean, if we can touch upon, because there's a reason why her motivation, of course, she defeats Fayed, right? Because the other thing too is I have to push back against um the lovely DJ's narrative. He says Baron Harkonnen was a gay archetype. No, he's
I
just
mean,
a monster, by
book.
the way. He is
Oh,
like
he's a monster. But in the books, they are so much more evil. The
Harkonnens, like, even in the movie, do you see them like they're feeding human flesh to their people?
yeah, the like
Like they're just
harem that
snapping necks of
Rotha
people.
has where he says like he will feed this to it's weird. So like in the books, they have taste for like young children, which is I can understand why you wouldn't want to depict that in the film, but yeah, it's even darker than what it is. You get kind of a taste of it when the Baron kind of destroys the ladies who are helping him. I think like massaging and doctoring him while he's in the tub, like after he's got poisoned. And then you kind of get hints as to what Fade Rotha is doing with his harem, I guess, who he's feeding to them. But it's so much darker in the book. It really goes to some dark places with like children, and it's creepy.
Oh, and he thinks that's a gay archetype. No, Eric, you're
I think it's
dumb.
more like the
You're
evil
so dumb.
archetype, but then at the same time, it gives you the
And
different
then
version.
someone, oh, by the way, he got
Training.
ratioed in that comment section as well because he is meant to be an evil, gluttonous king.
For sure. I think it shows like the power and how much it corrupts. But yeah, they give you hints of it in the movie, but I think it could have got a little bit harder into that. But I'm not sure if that
Because
was
killing the Baron, right? And because I get why the Emperor confronting, like, and I have to go back and it's like if you really compare it side by side, the Emperor's like, did you know who this person was? And that's why I say it's a little weird. I got used to the version of the abomination, which is actually they call the Betty Gesserit called the abomination.
yeah, the knife baby is an abomination.
And I'll have to bring an image of that up.
But
It
he kind of
Creepy as
changes.
hell. But
So, like Frank Herbert did say that he didn't necessarily like the way that everybody was interpreting the book after it was written. That everyone kind of saw Paul Atreides as the hero. So, Denis Villeneuve didn't want to depict it the way that Frank Herbert actually depicted it because that might give people uh, more empathy towards Paul and see him as the hero. So he changed it up a little bit to try and make it more clear that, you know, he has crossed that Rubicon. He has gone to the dark side, so to speak. He is about to set on this holy war. And he knows what's going to happen from it. I don't know that he was the most effective in that either. I've heard a bunch of different interpretations of it that, you know, like obviously
because part of it
the guys, the
is
Harkonnens are bad guys.
because here's the thing. She is supposed to go batshit insane in the later books.
For sure. And for a reason, the whole abomination reason.
Let me say. So I want you to imagine in the original like thing here. This is what she looked like.
And
this is right before she kills the Baron. The Baron goes,
well, and
my,
you'd have to
my
imagine
child. I'm like
talking like a normal adult with like, you know, complete sentience, like a very good vocabulary and comprehension of everything.
She's like
it
a
could come off very
4-year-old child, basically, by the time. What? No, it's the last of.
So it is the last one that we're going to get for right now, but he is doing Dune Messiah. I think Denis Villeneuve is doing another movie in between that.
This is her
in
the,
book, there's a 6-year jump.
by the way, this is the older version of her as she starts to go mad. And this is like I'm not going to go into spoilers for Dune Messiah. She starts to go crazy, basically. The whole idea of not having the quote unquote abomination. Because the idea of the symbolic duel at the end, and it's like Paul doesn't want to marry her. Okay, Finch. I'll describe
it's successful enough already. They've already announced they are doing Dune Messiah, but I think Denis Villeneuve is doing one movie in between then. So it's going to be a few years. In the books, it's a 6-year jump between where Dune ends and where Dune Messiah begins. So hopefully all the characters will age up a little bit, and then we will get the next one. But there is going to be a next one. It's already confirmed.
So the thing about it is, Dune was done in 2 parts. It ends with kind of like the Battle of Arrakeen. And now the houses that did not accept Paul's rule, he declares a jihad on them. That's
and
in the book.
Still see him as the hero that creates a jihad.
But we're in a future where religious orthodoxy is law. Okay. You know that if you follow Dune, and I don't want to spoil Dune or God Emperor Dune. Even if I explained the concept of the Golden Path, you would never get it without seeing Dune, the later Dunes. Like, I don't understand too. Okay, Gray, what is your thoughts on the whole difference in the books and he's fighting destiny? Like, if he goes south, there's going to be billions of deaths.
I mean, like, I can understand why there's a bunch of different things that they're leaving out of the movie. I think a lot of it is for time's sake, but it sounds like he really just wanted to focus on like the Bene Gesserit influence, and then that would put powerful women in this world and showing that they are affecting everything. And then he just kind of laid off of all the other things like the Spacing Guild, the other houses, all that stuff.
Well, you know what I'm talking about, right? Because he has the vision. He realized he knows he would have to fight the other houses. Now, there is stuff in between the other Dunes where when they send the Fremen off to other planets, they choose to stay there. I mean, there's a lot of other books in between the others he wrote. Like, I recommend the Butlerian Jihad. It doesn't really spoil Dune. It's more of a prequel. It's written by, like, his son even wrote decent books. So
Yeah, I haven't really. I think Messiah might have been the last one that I read, or maybe I. Is it like the? I can't remember what the next one's called. I might have.
Children of Dune is the one
Yes,
you
I
can.
think I did Children of Doom, but I can't remember if I finished it or not. I
Then it
definitely didn't
goes
read.
God of Dune.
Yeah, I didn't read that one, which I kind of. I wish I had. I didn't read the one that Frank's son kind of took over on. I probably should catch up on those.
Well,
There's a
he wrote books on the sub books on what was it? The House Atreides and the House Harkonnen history. There's two different books. He expanded his father's lore, basically, and
that is cool. I need to check those out. I have not read those at all.
it goes into the history of the House Atreides, then eventually into the Butlerian Jihad.
Because that is one thing that I think the first movie was really missing. I thought it was gorgeous. Everything looked amazing. The set design was amazing. The effects were amazing. I think where it really kind of failed for me was characterization. I wish we got to know these characters a little bit more. I wish we got involved with them a little bit more. And I think just the pacing could have been tweaked a little bit. But I did really enjoy that film. I think it is my favorite depiction of this story, but that's not saying much.
It's up there. I'm very weird. Like, I was disgusted at this scene. Like, I say this from the book because Chani is like a bossy cow, and that's not her character.
Are
And
you saying Zendaya is that way? Or because, like, the other character, I don't know. I guess she's bossy, but it's just kind of the Fremen way.
like, it's the scene of after he drinks the water, she knows that she is the child of destiny. And she goes, I hate being the child of destiny, or whatever, or the prophecy.
Yeah. And also, he's been telling her that he's not going to go through with this, that like he sees this war coming. So she kind of knows what's happening when he lies to her and drinks the stuff. And I think she sees what his mother is setting up. They do make her very perceptive in this one, where I think in the book she's kind of more, going along. And at the time she is pregnant as well. So it makes sense.
Is
She's
she
not
pregnant or is
in the
she?
book. So yeah, they have a kid. And then unfortunately the kid, so it's Atreides the second, or sorry, Leto the second. Yeah. And then, unfortunately that child's death is what pushes Paul to the verge and why he actually goes off on his whole holy war thing. I could understand why it would be tough to put that all into the movie and then make that go forward. So instead they can kind of keep, like women powerful by making her the one kind of second guessing this and saying like, no, he's not the prophet. Don't you see his mother is pushing all this stuff? I get why he did that. It might not have been my choice, but it does seem to hold up with what he's saying. Like Frank Herbert imagined women as equal, so they keep putting him in these submissive roles. I want them a little bit more empowered. And it's like, fair enough. And that's also his focus on the Bene Gesserit instead of bringing up like the Space and Guild or the houses. But I wish that stuff was fleshed out. There's just so many layers that this story is working on and so many different ins and outs to it. We really only get a fraction of it in the movies, any of the movie depictions of it. So I don't know. I think they're both great, the movie and the book. It just kind of depends what experience you want. If you want kind of the abridged version of it, yeah, watch the movies. But if you really want to dig into that world, the books are amazing. There's a reason why they're, considered the
I
pinnacle.
mean, the 84 movie is still good. Like, don't discount.
For sure. For sure. I dig this one a little bit more, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the whole freshness or whatever. But yeah, I love everything Lynch has done, man. Like, that is a crazy, wacky movie. But yeah, they also make some changes. But
But
And
Chani,
maybe
like
a little bit
walking away in disgust, it kind of goes, oh, she will see my ways. It's like, that doesn't mean that she is going to come back. I mean,
yeah. And I do believe she would have a bigger role to play in the future, but it is kind of weird that she takes her, worm taxi and gets the hell out of there as the end of the movie. Um, I don't know. It's interesting.
oh yeah. So what pushes him over is, um, it. They have a child, Leto, that it's killed by a House Carreno raid, and that's what pushes him over. Yes, they send the Sadakars come and attack, and that's what's weird. The Battle of Arrakeen only does not have the Sadokars or Sardaukars there.
Which you'd think if the Emperor is in, this new world, he would bring his special army, the most powerful army in the galaxy. I don't know. I agree with you. It seems like they could bring that in. They already introduced them before when they were used to take out House Atreides. So I don't know. It definitely seems like they could have made an appearance in this, but who knows? That might have been filmed, and that might have also been taken out along with Count Fenring and I can't remember his name, but the Atreides Mentat dude. He also filmed scenes, and then they're gone. And sadly, we're never going to get any deleted scenes or any director's edition of this. Like Denis Villeneuve just doesn't believe in that. It's just whatever was released to the theater is the vision of the movie.
Whatever it is, and whatever is there and is lost.
Mhm.
I do
Which is
still think it's a good film,
I want to see those
though.
deleted scenes, man. Like, there's a lot of good actors that were in there.
Like, I'm actually everything that I see. Like, this is why when I want to review stuff I like X-Men '97, I'm legitimately invested in. Like Shogun, like he doesn't understand. Like Shogun, it's if you are not watching it, you are missing it. You and I cannot emphasize that enough. We are actually in an era of good TV. Uh-huh.
I'm just saying, wouldn't it be great if you talked like Yoda but breathed like Vader? I would dig it. So
You're welcome. Have you seen it? Because like when I showed you that, like no one believes me. Like you get to review bad movies and other things. I feel bad for
oh,
you.
way too many bad movies. I've seen way too
I'm
many.
not just out a shot at you, Multi. Just
Hey, I'm not the one who chooses them, and I am not happy. I think my life would have been so much better if I never saw the movie Flamin' Hot, but it is forever scorched into my retinas.
it's not like you jokingly seen the movie White Chicks.
That is the masterpiece known as White Chicks. Please, it's one of Terry Crews' best performances. I love
True.
that movie.
Well, to be
Coen brothers, it could be
fair,
their best as
but
well.
see, I'm gonna have like that's why I say Shogun is really good. Like I've been watching it. Like
It's
it
got to be
lives
close to being
up
over now,
to
right?
it. God's
Isn't there like one more episode or something? Aren't we close to season one?
there's going to be no other seasons.
Fair enough. I don't know if you know Hollywood though. They like to tack stuff on, and then we have
No, they have said there's not. There is literally not. It's going to open. It's going to start. It's going to end. That's a big thing. Uh, the question is, I don't think there's going to be any deviation for
yeah.
it.
So and there's going to be 10 episodes total.
10
So
episodes total.
yes, I can't remember how many. What are we on now? 8 or
7 next week. 7 is no, so 6 just came out.
my bad.
Um,
I think I completely confused it with. I'm guessing Halo.
so,
Fair enough.
oh, it's okay. I'm sorry. The Flood. I looked up that series finale, season finale. Murder It with Fire. Hydra didn't understand about it, the horror of that. The flood is a disrespect to the entire game.
Yeah, man. If you want to talk about that sometime, I think you've got a better knowledge of it than I do. But they had the potential for 2 good episodes in the finale.
I don't even want to
They've
step
had
foot
1
in
good
this
episode in
season.
the entire 2 seasons. So, yeah, that Halo show.
So I gotta watch the episode 6. So there's 10 episodes. So there's 4 more. Now it's
Cool.
following the
I
book.
still got to catch up on all of it, but I've heard nothing but good things on it. Everyone is just
You need
praising
to
it.
catch up and do Masters of the Air as well.
I would also be down. I think that one's done now. I'm down to catch up on both of them. It's just going
You
to take
know
me a
what's
moment.
funny? I was looking into YouTube, like with things. I was like, do Masters of the Air review. I was waiting for you, someone to do it. Very small channels have done it. There's been some people try to cover it. It's like trying to do Dragon's Dogma gameplay. Not a lot of streamers were able to do it, and I know why. Because you need a computer and you need other crap to actually do it. You need a man, it's a separate thing. But not a lot of people in Masters of the Air and Shogun have both revitalized the whole historical section of YouTube.
Which is awesome, man. I'm glad that we have little events like that. Yeah, I
Shogun.
totally need to binge each of these, and I'd love to catch up and talk about it. Just, I know I'm not going to be able to do it weekly. Where the X-Men thing, it being a half-hour weekly, it's like, yes, I can definitely do that. But
Oh, I do think, what is it? The Fallout series that I want to do. I'm fine. I have a full anticipation that's going to be campy as hell.
probably, just hopefully they have some reverence for it. I mean, they've got Walt Goggins in there. He's always awesome. I hope the writing actually takes some reverence with the, original IP, unlike Halo has done. But we'll see. Campy's not bad as long as they respect the source material, which, yeah, man, some of
Struggles,
the
I would
pictures
let
look
you
like they're.
on if you. I don't know. I'm just trying to keep this. This is already going to be awful long as is. Would you like to come on and, like, when I have to redo the whole thing on Sweet Baby Inc. Part 2? Oh, God. Great.
I'd be down to talk about it. I kind of just knew the beginning of it, but I haven't really been keeping up.
No, but
Saw that
this
other
is
people dug
trying
up
to
a bunch
keep.
of those
I'm
fun
trying to keep my
videos of
stuff
what it was.
formatted right, because the thing about movies is, I think I'm going to like the Fallout TV series, even though it's Amazon. Like, what I may do is I may do something on House of Dragons season 2.
You should, man. It's blowing up YouTube. Like you'd probably get some eyes on you. But I expected that show to be so much worse than it actually was. I didn't hate it, and I was fully expecting
It's
to.
not
So,
a bad show. Not at all. It's in my repertoire to see. I mean, that's what people don't get.
yeah, but I don't know. Like Amazon, it's not guaranteed that it's gonna suck. Like, yes, I hate what they did with Rings of Power.
Finch,
Really
it's
hate.
not going to be this bad, okay? It's not
But
going to
you gotta
be
think
this bad.
they
I
also have
We have no idea
one that's
what
pretty
they're
big.
going to do. I can guarantee you, judging from the trailer, somehow the vault is going to get invaded. I I'll know where they're going with the show. I have a feeling it's going to be Abomination of Fallout. Okay?
I
Think
hope it's not, but I've been through a couple of those Abomination adaptations. So I hope you don't experience that with this.
No, no, no. What I mean it's
Pictures
going to
look
be
like they
what I
actually
mean it's going to
what it
be is
looks
an
like.
abomination. Is the story writing looks like they're taking Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 3, and Fallout 4 with a little bit of Fallout 76. And they shoved it into one show.
Which is kind of what they're doing. I don't know. I guess that might not be the worst. They're kind of doing that with X-Men where they took a whole bunch of these different storylines and are kind of shoving them together. I'm kind of liking how it's working. It might really go off the rails and it might suck in the future, but what they're doing so far, I dig. They tried to do the same thing with Halo, where they mixed Reach and the Flood and a whole bunch of other things
That
all into
doesn't
one
work.
season, and it sucks. Like they really missed the point on every one of those and just made a horrible show. So I don't know. We've got examples of both of them kind of working and not working recently, where they're doing that same thing.
I
I
mean,
hope they understand that.
I like the whole I like the whole trailer of so far, right? I've showed I think the trailer, obviously. I think I've showed the trailer before of Fallout. They're not as, you know what's funny? Amazon's not as bad as like Nintendo or Warner Brothers if you
It depends, man. Like, so I loved the Wheel of Time books, and they just
no, they're not as
every
bad
one
as
of
when
those
you
people
show
up.
media like in a back
But
replay they go. By the way, have you ever noticed when you have to do something on YouTube to snip out a section, it doesn't snip it out? You might as well pull the
yes,
stream down and fuck yourself.
yes, I've gone through that a couple different times where it's like this part is struck. Do you want to like remove it? It's like sure, and then it just doesn't. Yeah, I hate their editing system, so I was just doing it myself. But I don't know, man. I hope they have some sort of reverence for it because, like, Bosch was an Amazon adaptation, and so's Reacher. They actually kind of respected those characters.
Well,
And
and
like,
I'm
a lot of it
like,
comes down to the writing and if they actually care about it or not, or if they're doing their own thing.
so this is the trailer. This this is Fallout as Fallout gets.
Yeah,
Okay,
it looks like they kind of know what it should look like. And I love Walt Goggins, man. That dude is great and everything.
that looks like a vault. Look, I can't. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna hold my breath. Like they got the campiness right. They got this right. And someone's like, "Why do you have a female character?" Okay, that's the right world. Right cars. Okay, a little bit weird.
I mean, it looks beautiful. I don't know.
Want this to be good. I
Yeah, I hope the writing sticks with what was actually there and they're not putting stuff into it.
I'm fine with
Who knows?
this scene. And it's done by the person who did Westworld.
Which I loved the first season of Westworld. They kind of lost me, but visually that dude knew what he was doing with the camera. So a lot of these shots, I love the way that they're moving the
See,
camera.
Finch, I showed this to you, right? There has to be. So, okay. I do believe he's going to be one of the better characters.
It doesn't look horrible to me, but I don't know. Like cynical Finch is saying, like I am a bit cynical myself. I expect these adaptations to be shit, and then I'm
Okay.
usually not disappointed.
This is what bothers me. How they're going to handle the Brotherhood of Steel?
I'm not 100% certain. The costumes look kind of cool, but they also don't look like they weigh as much as they should. So
Oh,
I don't
by
know.
the way, I like the look of that. That little bit. This is going to be how they do live action of that. Many people don't realize that's the guy from Lost.
I like a lot of the actors that they have in here. I only recognize a couple, but I'm not hating it.
Okay, here's
They're
the
not
thing
doing a bunch
about the
of stunt
power. Here's
casting.
the thing about that's the guy from Justified.
Yeah, Walt Goggins. I love that dude.
Yeah. Here's the thing: the power armor. They are literally like 8 feet tall in the power armor. Like,
It looks decent, like visually. So I know nothing about the storyline
okay.
or what they're
The
doing,
funny
but
part about this is, right, when you see them walking in the power armor, that's actually what it looks like. It's not Halo bad. It literally is not Halo bad. Like, They're 8 feet tall.
Well, I mean, they're not, taking the people out of the suits. I don't know. From what I'm seeing
Come on.
visually, it looks like they have more. I don't know,
It
reverence
ain't
for the
as
source
bad as
material. But
wait till
Halo, they had the suits, man. Like they just never put him in it. But I think they could have made a trailer that showed a lot of the visuals that would make
now
people
in
think.
reality, you want to talk about the modular armor, each section of it having a little mini fusion reactor in there. I want to say the idea, right, is the visuals. Let me see. This is actually like when you see the person. Okay, in reality, right? Angler breaks it a bit.
Yeah, that doesn't look horrible though. I kind
This
of like.
is what the power armor looks like.
It just doesn't look like it weighs, hundreds of pounds. It does look a little bit like foam, but fair enough. It looks pretty good to me.
But if when you imagine a character in power armor, that's what you see.
Yeah, visually, I think they nailed it, but again, it's going to come down to the
It's
story.
not
I,
going to
I hope
come
they do it
down
right.
to like you're in an actual exosuit. Like, can you imagine if they did this out of metal?
No,
Like,
but it would be amazing. I want to know that,
but the thing
it
is,
really.
this is what you needed to nail right here.
Fair enough. It looks better than the Spartan suits, I say.
I mean, the Spartans should be like that tall. They should be taller than normal humans, right? And like the helmet, I guess is going like you can tell it's going to be like foam. Now, can do I have the problem that the now what is this one? Oh, there's like the one where they're sitting in back of a vertebrate to take up a whole back of the vertebrate. I could see that.
But yeah, as Finch is saying, like it looks good, no doubt, but the dialogue. I haven't seen any of the actual like trailers that have dialogue. Does it seem like it's up to the game standards or eh?
I'm we're all hoping it's good. We are literally hoping it's the funny part about the whole like I mean this is old, but like the fan animation, I remember seeing this. By the way, Machinima, God rest the section of the internet. Do you remember
I
how
remember
good?
when fan made things were pretty awesome. It's been a
Yeah,
while.
like it shows like so when you see certain people, right? They show like the people kind of thing. Like, I could see it, like the armor, like this is like the Ranger armor here. So there's a lot like I'm prepared for it to be awful.
I would definitely go in assuming that they're not going to do it justice. I don't know. I got my heart so
I'm
broken
not raising
by
my hopes for
the
X Men
adaptation,
'97 to be
man.
disappointed.
I don't know. So far, so good with X-Men 97. I was surprised. I was fully expecting to hate it. I was primed to hate it, and I'm digging it, man. Like every bit of it, it's working on so many
I'm
levels.
as long as they
Makes it
stick to
fun.
the script and they don't go preachy, it's fine.
Which so far they haven't. I'm gonna keep an eye out for kind of the storm things that you mentioned, and I'm gonna actually go back through and kind of clip a couple of. I think they would be considered woke storm lines that she's kind of calling back to from X-Men 97, but from the original X-Men. I don't know, man. I don't think they've changed that character that much, but maybe. I might just be blind to it, but yeah.
Oh, someone. Oh, there was a person here who. Oh, I have another. And I'd have been to have to get back to multi. Yeah, there was this person who did a full reaction to what was it? Oh, see, Gray. I have to. Did you see how bad the take was from so these people. Some of these people are bad. Like one guy, I've had my hand in certain people like sections. People don't realize this.
Gross. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think so. I've had my head down for like the last little while. I
Oh,
have.
you've had yours. Oh, I've been busy. Like, you know what? Having like a 4 hour stream that actually had good, like, just nuked from existence sucks because I had it exported and then it got eaten out because it was bad. Oh, have you ever tried to upload a file and it get corrupted?
Yes. Back when me and Patrick were doing the shows, I had one where it's like it'll finish uploading in like whatever 10 minutes. So it's like sweet. That'll be like an hour before it's supposed to premiere. We're all good.
You had
It
to leave.
stayed there for like a day and a half. Like we fully had to like I had to upload it again a second time and it never actually got through it. So yes, I've had a couple of
And
corrupted ones. YouTube every once in a while screws up and there's no way to fix it.
oh, and if you pray to God, you destroy the file. Okay. Yeah, so I'll catch you, Miss Sparkles. Or no, it's the I'll see. So let me show you. I'm not expecting you to stay.
We're gonna make a game this.
I'm not gonna expect you. This is the part. I warn you. I have Romeo who signed up for this. The first part was almost 3 hours because a lot of this logic does not make sense. So this is the part. If you haven't seen my first part, Gray, she had just got off the games. Her apolitical. Games are always political, and she called the assassins. These women here called the assassins were anarchists, and these are people who worked on Assassin's Creed. Gray.
You can kind of tell from the logo. That definitely looks a little Assassin's Creedy, but
the assassins were never anarchists. Like
Saying
this,
like every character is going to be white.
I wouldn't ask you to go alter
this form. That is a choice, and I wish that we would look at these things as choices instead of going like, oh well, don't put politics into your game. Like no, let's have a discussion about the way the reasons that we make these things. We don't have to dissect them until they're boring, but at least like.
Oh, this is why her thought process. I cut this right off at the end because this woman does like the opposite of Dane. She says a lot in about 5 minutes. You wonder why
that's
this was
awesome.
for. You have to literally dissect it.
Huh.
Say, well, yeah, I have a point of view.
That's something because
it's always wild to me when people say Assassin's Creed is not political.
There you go.
Like it's literally about this anarchist group who kill politicians. Like how is that not political by its very definition?
Yeah, because what gives anybody at any point the right to decide that this is what's better for the people? That is politics. Politics is founded in that kind of decision, and yeah, it's fully deciding who gets to rule, who gets to not rule, and I think it's wild to say anything.
And the games themselves, they reflect that mentality. They do, like, they always begin, of course, with this description that it's made by a multicultural team of various religions and all that. Like that's already at the beginning of every game. But also in the games themselves, you find like letters and documents and database entries where they.
You see what this is? The mind of the activist, Gray. You see?
Well, I don't know. I was recently introduced to kind of this other idea that like everything is political, including what you choose not to cover. So the fact that like maybe you're going to do a song about a politician. Well, the fact that you choose to do a song that's not about a politician is just as political.
Oh, did you see the clip the other day? I showed this to like Finch and others, and Gunrunner last who like. Did you see the clip where Kamala Harris was outside in Puerto Rico and she clapped to a protest song?
No, but I'm assuming that there's many different ways to interpret that. That obviously that's your fault.
It was a weird one. No, but it goes in like, and then she gets into
Don't
the.
address politics like you absolutely do.
Hello, sir.
There is a weird kind of level of secrecy in the industry that you don't.
So I have to go back. Let's see.
This includes us, or it doesn't involve.
So there's a part in this where they go into the thing about the COD lobbies back in the day.
I think we're going to be a lot further, because it's, to me, it's so foolish to just say like, oh, we don't do that. We just don't address politics like you absolutely do.
There is a weird kind of
part of this is true
level of secrecy in the industry that you don't really get as much in like the movie
40K
industry,
never
for example.
denies that it's political.
I think it's, yeah, you're right. I have to assume it's because we are. I mean, one, I think the positioning of a lot of these products is very singular. We say, okay, this is the kind of thing we want to make. These are the kinds of games that sell, and these are the kinds that don't. And until the past little while, I think that there's a real oversaturation of games that were fully combat based, and that was kind of it. And that doesn't necessarily lay a.
I had to break this apart because they flow in. Have you ever heard of a combat game?
I mean, I've definitely heard the term, but I guess what exactly would she be considered?
This is how they describe combat. So I edited this down. This is a list. I know, Miss Sparkles. This is awful. These people are not as bad. And what's funny is one of these people is still at Ubisoft. Two of these people. That European woman, yeah. She works as the community manager and she works at Massive Studios.
Foundations for something that's very inclusive and representative.
Yeah, it's still kind of seen as indie territory.
So, did you get the context of that statement? They said combat games are indie territory. But
really? So even though
what is a combat game?
Fair enough. But would she consider Fortnite, or like, I'm trying to think of like what the most popular ones are. Like they mentioned Call of Duty, right? So those are indie games. They're not mainstream.
Yes.
To not have combat or have this, like, people look down on mobile games because it's seen as,
here's a good
somehow
one.
inferior because it's played by a lot of women.
Yeah,
like, maybe
exactly.
Isn't it just because there's no like actual to it? It's just a bunch of tapping the screen. I mean, there are some, like Genshin does a little bit more than like your average game, but many of them are just tapping. Like there's no real skill to it. Like I've played a bunch of those different ones. Like
okay, what you're talking about. Are you familiar with? There's a thing, and I thought about it. I have to bring up this, and I really need to go into it. It's a 2020 study on sexes in games and how they game. Right. So match 3 Sims clearly favor women, right? But she says mobile games are made for women. This is a part. It's like,
I mean, like, I think they do play a lot of Candy Crush and like the Farm Simulator and a bunch of those.
They do
other
a lot of guys.
Yeah, but I know I've played all of those as well, so I don't know.
Bejeweled is for the. Do you realize even back in the old phones, I played Bejeweled on my phone all the time?
Yeah, I remember like playing the hell out of like Candy Crush and all those other ones that are similar to that. I mean, it seems like an evolution of kind of Tetris and stuff like that. I like those. Not my favorite.
Actually,
but,
looking at the reasons why women gravitate maybe towards
Yeah.
these kinds of games.
See, there you go, Miss Sparkles.
Yeah, and the answer is usually inclusion, right? It's usually like, oh, we're gravitating towards this because it at least includes us, or it doesn't involve the same thing. Because I do find that, while I'm not going to say like there are tons of shooting games that I love. I enjoy those games. I play them all the time, but I wonder, how many different ways
That's a real
can
gamer
we
exposed
express a character in a
themselves.
world? How many different things can we do? And where would we be if we had invested as much time in perfecting the feeling of that versus perfecting the feeling of a gun?
What is wrong with that statement?
Well, I don't know why it has to be an either or an or. Can't you perfect both? Like, I guess it depends on what the game is, but it seems like she wants the entire industry to not focus on those, which
So there's a deeper, easier one to go through. Here's the problem with this statement, Gray. Just if you ever wonder about this. All right. She is saying narrative needs to be more important than the gunplay in a game play that revolves around gunplay. Is that complicated, Gray?
it sounds a little complicated. I'm not sure exactly what she wants out of it. So does everything just change to a? I don't know. I guess I
How
don't
do
know.
you have a game based around gunplay when the gunplay is
Yeah.
ass?
It definitely seems like I don't know. The two are not congruent, but
So imagine Halo with the guns being crap.
okay. So all the Halo competitors.
So do you think Halo would be as legendary it is if it didn't have decent gunplay combined with a subtle narrative?
I don't think so. There were a few different Xbox ones that are kind of like that first-person shooter ones that, yeah, they just didn't take off. I really enjoyed the guns, specifically like in Halo 2, where you could get the two pistols or the two needlers.
Yeah.
I really dug that, man. Like it was the gun mechanics what kind of drew me to that one and why I liked it so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like in these kind of what people dub casual games, it's often also that you don't get that element that is prevalent in a lot of combat games is, the culture of shit talking.
Oh yeah.
And that's already that's a very toxic space for women.
Oh, absolutely. The
That's
second that they
absent
hear
in
you.
Okay. Again,
It's a toxic space. I mean,
you
granted,
missed the part. They double down on this term, combat game.
I don't know. I would just say like all those lobbies were toxic. Like I don't think it matters what gender you identify as. Like I don't know. Everyone was just mocked in
What
those.
did I
rooms.
say to you long ago? Dane would have never survived a COD lobby back in the day.
Oh, definitely not.
No.
Well, shit. I just noticed the time. I gotta take off, man.
I know. I'm not gonna make you sit through this, but like I have this planned. I guess. I mean, maybe tomorrow.
Well, I'd be down if you need somebody to kind of walk through it. I did not listen to any of this stuff. I know Vincent said that you discovered this one, and he sent it to me. And I gotta be honest, I just kind of tuned out to all of this.
It's interesting because it's the mind of a person. I wouldn't do this today, but no, I just want to keep it more focused. I do a little bit of tease what I do for the next day, and that's probably going to
Well,
be.
if you want to Sherpa me through it sometime, I'd be totally down because I have no idea what happened after I kind of that initial thing. I know people were doing more digging after that, so I'd be totally interested.
Oh.
I totally stopped digging after that.
No. What is, by the way, is what is multi making you watch today?
So we got the Captain America Winter Soldier. I feel like there was like 12 other things. Invincible episode 6, Halo episode 8, Goldfinger, Miller's Crossing, and Stardust. Oh, also Dark Water. There's entirely too many things, so I have rebelled against him. And in the future, we're just going to do 3 things a week, which will be much
he's
easier.
finally cutting it down.
Yeah, he finally has agreed to it, but yeah.
I have nothing against
Yeah, there's like 7 things we're going over today. Oh, and The Walking Dead, whatever hell season it is. So yeah, if you want to listen
I'm
to us,
waiting on
4 hours, come over and watch.
Yes, Gray. Did you have any other? Did you finally get enough cut on the Eric July thing so we can go over the last?
No, I have not touched that at all. If you still want me to, I can do that. I've been working on this one video way too long, and it's taking me forever. Yeah, I just kind of got bogged down in this.
Oh, I have Patrick. I have Renowned that's willing to do Fallout. Renowned is willing to do it. He doesn't want to watch X-Men 97 because he's afraid it's going to ruin his fifis and memories of his childhood. I'm optimistic because I think the creating right now is fine with X-Men 97. I told Renown that. I think it's going to, but I am waiting for the swerve.
I'm remaining optimistic. I expected it to suck, and right now I'm loving it. So
I
if
didn't
this can
expect it
continue,
to suck. I
hell
didn't expect it to suck. I expected it to have a modern Marvel taste.
same. And I'm not getting that so far. I'm gonna look back into the Storm thing that you mentioned, but yeah, so far I'm loving it. But I'm fully prepared to not like it in the future. But hell yeah, man! Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to talking to the next one. And if you want to sherpa me through the Sweet Baby Ink stuff,
I will. I'll close this out. I'll probably be
All right, man.
streaming later.
Thank you for letting me join. I hope you have a good rest of your stream, man, and a good rest of your week.
No, I'm going to get off because I'm going to actually close this one out, and then I think later I'm going to do the new season of. I think the servers are back up for Fallout 76, but no. Anyways, but I will see it. Gray has to go off and deal multi. But thank you for staying, and it's a little bit earlier, but I will be back in a couple of hours for Fallout 76 season. But hopefully this is episodic, and Dune is more a movie. So there's a philosophy, right, to Dune, and X-Men 97 does look like it's going to be fine. I mean, it's going to be potentially weird. But it's going to be all how they handle it. Fallout, I have high hopes for it as well. But tomorrow, I don't know how long I'm going to be gone tomorrow. I actually have an appointment I have to do in the afternoon. And judging by that, I probably won't be doing anything until later. I planned on something tomorrow, but I don't know what the time is going to be for it. So, yes. And I recommend go watch Gray and watch Multi. It's going to be interesting. Me, I'm just going to go wait and break in the new season of Fallout 76. So, I welcome it all and see people later. And so I will try to do this. We'll have to see. Yeah. But I'll just play this by ear. And you people have a good day. Like and subscribe if you care. And see this in the future.